Hello everyone and welcome to this new session on current affairs. Students, in this session we will deal with few topics which I feel are important for the mains examination. This is our third session on current affairs and we have seen few topics. Today we will see some topics which relate to more traditional sections of the syllabus. It means they are current and they are challenges, but if you see the question papers of the last few years, you'll find that questions have recursively been asked from these areas. Okay, so the first topic that we will do today is left-wing extremism or Naxalism. Now, you know that this is a part. Let us have a quick look at the brief history of the rise of Maoism in India. You see that with the success of a Russian Revolution, perhaps the socialist current entered into India in a more vociferous manner. And people in India were greatly influenced by the idea of a socialist state. The ideas of Marx and Lenin immediately became very popular, especially among the youth, because it gave a kind of channel to express the anti-colonial sentiments. So in 1920s, ऐसा बहुत मुश्किल से ही कोई होता था who is not influenced by the leftist ideology or the Marxist-Leninist thought process. In fact, you would also know this, that even Bhagat Singh and his comrades were too much influenced by the ideas of Marxism and Leninism. And that's why they changed the name of their organization as Hindustan Socialist Republican Association or Army. So the Communist Party of India, it was formed in the early half of the 1920s. In fact, in 1925 December, you have the Communist Party of India. It played a vital role in the Indian independence movement. But you see that once India attained independence, there was a section within the communist bloc which called this independence as sham independence. It means jhuti azadi. Why? Because they felt that we have got freedom from the English, but we have not got freedom from the exploitative organization of the economy, which according to them was capitalism. And therefore, capitalism, unless and until it is removed from the country, true freedom and freedom for the masses, it will not be obtained. So this is on the eve of independence. Come 1949, a very significant event happened in world history. It was Mao Zedong who successfully transformed China, mainland China, into a communist state. It was the Communist Revolution of China based on the ideology of Mao Zedong. Clear? Now, what is Mao Zedong's ideology? His ideology is the ideology of protracted war against the state to establish a socialist state. Now, what do we mean by protracted war? It means it's a stretched war. It has three important parts. First is an armed struggle. An armed struggle will not be on the basis of a regular army, but on the basis of a militia or guerrilla warfare tactics. That's the first part of the protracted war strategy. The second part is mass mobilization in order to garner support for the armed struggle, to supply men and material for the armed struggle. And third was to ensure that there is no co-option with the capitalist system. Clear? So these are the three important characteristics of the protracted war as enunciated by Mao Zedong. So 1949, what happened is Mao Zedong successfully, he transformed China into a communist state using the protracted war strategy. And this influenced the members of the Communist Party of India. The Communist Party of India, there were some sections in the Communist Party of India, you can call them as the radical sections of the Communist Party of India. They favored a Chinese kind of a revolution. And also, they did not want it to get co-opted with the Indian electoral system. उन्होंने सबने जो elections है उसका boycott कर दिया. But later on, Communist Party of India decided to participate in the elections, general elections. What happened next was that more radical sections, they separated themselves from the Communist Party of India, and in 1964, they formed the Communist Party of India Marxist, deciding that they would also not participate in the election. But later on, they also participated in the general election. So the more far left radicals, they thought that now they need to take some active steps in order to establish their ideological goal. It all started in 1967 in the place called Naxalbari in West Bengal. What happened was, under the leadership of Charu Majumdar, Kanu Sanyal and Jangal Santhal, what happened is that there was a local struggle against the jotedars or the zamindars, or you can say that there was an armed struggle against the zamindars. The zamindars were brought out of their homes, they were killed in broad daylight, and the Naxal movement had started. Since then, Naxalism has only grown with time. It's the far-fetched radical left movement which do not believe in electoral politics. It undermines the idea of India. It does not believe in the constitution of India. नक्सलियों के हिसाब से जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो झूठा है, इट्स अ बुर्जुआ डॉक्यूमेंट, और जो आज़ादी है वो भी झूठी है. Why? Because it is not ending the exploitation of the masses. In areas of India, especially rural India, where you would see that development or the current of development has not reached properly, which are mostly populated by the tribal population and are mineral rich, thickly forested, these became now the hotbeds for the Maoist movement in India. The idea of the Maoists is to destroy the constitution of India, is to remove the idea of India and in its place establish the People's Republic of India, very much similar to that of Mao Zedong's People's Republic of China. Now, the protracted war strategy also included forming strategic alliances, and that's why the Maoists find it no difficulty, or they do not see it problematic, even to form alliances with the ISI or the terror outfits, because that's a part of the protracted strategy. Protracted strategy says that you have to wage an armed struggle, second, you have to do some sort of mass mobilization, and you have to form strategic alliances without getting co-opted into the system. What is the dream of the Maoist? The dream of the Maoist is to throw away the Indian state and establish in its place the People's Republic of India. ये वो establish करना चाहते हैं on the communist lines as it has happened in China. In 2005, the then Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, said that Naxalism is the single largest threat to internal security in India. And who can forget the gruesome killing of the 74 CRPF Jawans in Dantewada, or what happened in Sukma? Who can forget that? Today, Naxalism has brought into its ambit all the rural, underdeveloped, tribal, mineral-rich, plateau, thickly forested areas. And today, the red corridor, it means that area which is under the control of the Naxalites, it extends from Nepal to the fringe of Tamil Nadu or to the margins of Tamil Nadu. But the Maoist ideology or the Naxalism as a movement, it is strongest in the Dandakaranya Plateau or the Bastar Plateau. It is also very dominant in Jharkhand, Odisha and in Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. Some time back, it was excessively growing in Telangana. But due to the actions of the Andhra Pradesh police then, because that time Telangana was not formed, and a very popular operation known as Operation Greyhound, they were forced out of the jungles of Telangana and they sought refuge in the jungles of Chhattisgarh and Odisha. Today places like Gadchiroli, Dantewada, Sukma, Konta, these areas have become the hot spots for Maoist movement in India. It is the single largest threat to internal security, and that's why you will see, if you read your syllabus on GS paper 3, you will find one specific line dedicated to the Naxalite movement or the challenges created due to the Naxalite movement for internal security in India. So let us start with this topic today. So have a look at this. We are trying to look at the red corridor, and you would see that the red corridor, it extends from Nepal and goes up to the fringes of Tamil Nadu. There are some areas which are thickly affected by the Maoist violence in India, but there are some areas which are moderately affected. There have been some success also in curbing Naxalist violence, especially after launching several initiatives by the state governments and the national government. And today we have a program called the Samadhan strategy that has also helped in curbing Naxal violence. But you see one thing, there are also some potential targeted areas जो Naxalites ने ढूंढ कर रखा है, that we would like to extend our movement to these areas. Do you understand that? That also includes Uttaranchal, it includes parts of Madhya Pradesh, it includes parts of Gujarat and Maharashtra. Clear? Let's have few points, or let's see few points regarding the red corridor. The red corridor is the region in the central, eastern and southern parts of the country that experience severe Naxalite Maoist insurgency. The districts affected by this are part of the corridor and are among the poorest in India. So one thing that you need to note here is poor people live in these areas where development has not reached. They are mostly tribal people, and these areas are rich in minerals. Think of the Dandakaranya Plateau, the Ranchi Plateau, or in the Odisha region, the Mayurbhanj region, or you think of the Vidarbha Plateau, Telangana Plateau. These are rich in minerals, thickly forested. Poor people live here, mostly tribal people, and development has not reached these areas. Most of the region has a high tribal population. The region is also marked by severe caste and economic disparities. So there is also some sort of social struggle between them. And you know that communism, after all, talks of a classless society. So the idea becomes very romantic for people living in these areas who have not experienced the goods of development. Roughly, the corridor stretches from the Indian border with Nepal and extends to the northern fringes of Tamil Nadu. The region has also significantly lower literacy compared to the national average. Obviously, lack of development means no good health facilities, no good education facilities. So both in terms of malnourishment or in terms of illiteracy, you will see there is a high preponderance in these areas. These areas are generally thickly forested and rich in minerals. This is the red corridor. Let us have a look at what are the causes that have led to the growth of the Naxalite movement in India, or the factors that are responsible. But before we go into the factors, let's have a look at the Protracted Peoples War. This strategy was enunciated by Mao Zedong. That's why Mao Zedong has become the ideological father of the Naxalite movement in India. Hail the Mao is a popular slogan among the Naxalites, especially in the Bastar region. You'll find that. Now, the Protracted Peoples War, which is a capture of state power through a combination of an armed insurgency. Remember, this is not an armed insurgency, or this is not a struggle like an armed battle. It is an insurgency which focuses on militia, local militia, जो किसान होते हैं, जो मजदूर होते हैं, उनको आर्म्स देकर, उनको वेपन्स देकर, जो आदिवासी होते हैं उनको वेपन्स देकर, उनको एक मिलिशिया में कन्वर्ट करना और फिर उनसे वॉर करना विद द स्टेट टू कैप्चर स्टेट पावर. And the tactic of the war is guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare, what is guerrilla warfare? Where you wait and you ambush. जिसे घात लगाकर अटैक करना जिसे कहते हैं, वो होता है गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर. दे डू नॉट फाइट लाइक अ प्रोफेशनल आर्मी, बट दे फाइट with the guerrilla warfare tactics. It's very popular tactics throughout the communist world. Now, mass mobilization, it means you need support from the people, from the grassroots people, so as to ensure that there is regular supply of material, there is regular supply of recruits, and there is acceptance for the movement, so that the masses act as a shield for the Naxalites. Third is strategic alliances. Strategic alliances means किसी के साथ भी वो हो सकते हैं if their ideology is getting fulfilled. And that's why Maoists, they regularly form alliances with terror outfits, organized criminals, even the Pakistani ISI. And there are enough intelligence proofs to do that, to prove that thing. It considers industrial-rural divide fundamental to capitalist exploitation and hopes to overcome it by a violent mass struggle. That's one thing that you need to keep in mind, that the Naxalites, they believe that violence is the tool to capture state power. And that's why you will see that it's a very famous slogan in the communist world, that power flows through the barrel of the gun. So they do not believe in non-violent or Gandhian methods for waging a mass struggle. Rather, they believe in armed struggle with guerrilla tactics and forming strategic alliances with mass support to remove the Indian state and establish in its place a state which is very similar to the present day Chinese state. It means like the People's Republic of China, they want to establish the People's Republic of India. Now, let us have a look at the factors that are responsible for the growth of Naxalism in India. First, political apathy and lack of political participation of the tribals. Well, it is common knowledge that there has been a kind of political, you can say, stepmotherly treatment towards the regions that are now included in the Red Corridor. Think of Chhattisgarh, think of Jharkhand, think of Odisha, think of Vidarbha, think of Telangana. These areas are rich in minerals. बहुत minerals हैं यहाँ पर. There are enough forest resources also. But when you try to highlight the most backward regions of the country, these areas will fall into that country, into that category. And why is so? The reason is because of political stepmotherly treatment towards these areas. And that's why you see today Chhattisgarh, be Jharkhand or Telangana, they all have got separated from their mother states. And you know that demands for statehood also come from areas like Vidarbha all the time. Because the political establishment, both the state political establishment and successive national political establishment, irrespective of the parties, there is one thing common, that there has been a kind of political apathy or stepmotherly treatment, सौतेला व्यवहार हुआ है, to these areas. Clear? Lack of political participation of the tribals. See, after independence, you will find that the level of political engagement and political awareness among different sections of the population has only grown. But when you look at what has happened with the tribals, you do not see the trajectory moving in the same channel as for the rest of the population. In simple words, the political empowerment of the tribals have not happened in a substantial manner. And this is the reason why you see that they feel politically cheated. That's the first reason why they get attracted towards the Naxalite ideology. Second, economic underdevelopment. These areas are not only politically laggards, but they are also economically deprived. They have rich minerals. If you go to Odisha, you find all kind of minerals, uranium tak hai Odisha mein. But look at the level of economic development. The economic development has not happened. In fact, other parts of the country where they do not have such kind of mineral wealth, they have progressed far. And when there is economic underdevelopment, there would be material impoverishment. And material impoverishment can make the Naxalite ideology look attractive. जिसे कहते हैं ना, भूखे पेट भजन ना होए, the empty stomach cannot pray. And that's why you see that economic underdevelopment has caused material impoverishment. Garibi. It's a big reason why they get attracted towards the Naxalite ideology. Environmental degradation. You see, I told you that these are the areas which are populated by the tribals. And if you look at the tribal way of life, like if you look at tribe groups like the Gonds, the Muryas or the Bhils, you will see one thing, that forests play an integral part in their life, be it the Santals. The forests play an integral part in their life. They draw their identity from the forests. In fact, if you remove the forest from the life of a tribal, it is similar like removing the engine from the car and then asking the car to move. Obviously, it can move along a slope, but it would not have any thrust. Do you understand that? Now, environmental degradation, especially with the current of development, you would see that industries were set up, mining centers were set up, there was large scale mineral exploitation and clearance of forests. This completely destroyed the tribal way of living, and therefore they nursed an anger towards this entire developmental endeavor. Do you understand that? Lack of basic infrastructure. If you go to places like Bastar, if you go to places like Vidarbha or the Maoist affected regions of Odisha or in Jharkhand, in Telangana, you will find that basic infrastructure, it means road, railway, irrigation, these have not come up at the same rate as they have come up elsewhere in the country. And this has also added fuel to the fire of you can say a kind of dissatisfaction or disenchantment with the state. Social exclusion and alienation. The tribals, they feel that they are socially alienated, or they do not find common grounds with the mainstream society. The mainstream cultural symbols, they find it hard to relate to it. Like say for example, a tribal child who speaks Santali, when he goes to school, he has to read either Hindi or English. It means he is totally divorced from his mother tongue, the Santali. And you can understand that this also creates a sense of alienation in him. He feels that he is a misfit into the system. Do you understand that? Therefore, the idea of having a system where his mother tongue is celebrated only grows in him. And when the Naxalite use this as a strategy to further their interests, it looks attractive to the child. So they feel socially excluded from the mainstream society and they feel that they are alienated. उनको ऐसा लगता है they are not the part of the mainstream society. Regional inequalities and governance deficit. Definitely. If you look at these regions, and there is no prize for guessing that these regions are economically underdeveloped regions. And because of such economic underdevelopment or material impoverishment, you would see that there is a kind of dissatisfaction with the system. But not only economic underdevelopment is the reason for the dissatisfaction, also there is a governance deficit. Forget about good governance, governance deficit. Governance deficit means that the schools that are located in these areas, they do not function properly. Hospital है लेकिन doctor नहीं है, school है पर teacher नहीं है. So you can understand that this all happens due to governance deficit or non-implementation of the governmental schemes. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि 70 साल में कोई स्कीम ही नहीं बनी होगी इन एरियाज के लिए. There is the backward area development program. And why they have not yet developed? Because of the lack of implementation of these programs. It means, this is an administrative flaw and the bureaucracy has to take the responsibility for it. It is mostly the bureaucracy in these regions. Obviously, there is some political interference, but primarily it is the bureaucracy which has failed the people. That is also a major reason. Jal Jangal Zameen. It's a very popular theme in these areas. Jal means water, jungle, forest, and Zameen is land. These are the three rights for which they claim to fight, because they are deprived of these three rights. Clear? Naxal sympathizers in the urban areas. Now, this is also a major reason why the Naxalite movement continues unabated in the entire Red Corridor. There are few people in the urban areas who provide intellectual support to the Naxal sympathizers. And you see the Protracted Peoples War strategy. It subsumes the idea of forming strategic alliances. So the Maoist commanders or the Naxal leaders, they do not find any problem in associating themselves with these Naxal sympathizers. These Naxal sympathizers in the urban areas, often they are called as urban Naxals. There is a report by the Ministry of Home Affairs regarding this unholy nexus between the intelligentsia in the urban areas that provide intellectual support to the Maoist and the Maoists. There is this unholy nexus which exists. Clear? Now, these Naxal sympathizers, one thing that you will see in them is that they are highly active if there is any human right violation against the Naxals. अगर कोई जैसे कहते हैं ना मानव अधिकारों का हनन होता है with respect to the Naxals, these Naxal sympathizers, they rise in arms. But if there is human right violation of the security forces who are doing a duty for the nation, these Naxal sympathizers who remain in the urban areas, they maintain a deafening silence. It means they show a partiality with respect to even the implementation of human rights. अगर कोई human rights का activist है, वो तो हर तरह के human right violation के लिए आवाज उठाएगा. But if you are selective in your approach, then definitely you have some sympathetic inclination towards the Naxalite movement. Such people, they exist everywhere in urban areas. They are there in the offices, they are there in the universities, they are there in the schools, in the colleges, in every domain of public life. And I am not saying that. It is a report by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay? So you can use that point in your answer very well. Clear? Let's have a look at why Naxalism is a threat. Why is it a threat? इतने क्यों परेशान हैं हम नक्सलिज्म को लेकर, या जैसे कहते हैं माओइस्ट वायलेंस और लेफ्ट विंग एक्सट्रीमिज्म को लेकर इतना क्यों परेशान हैं हम? First, it undermines the Constitution of India. Now, let us all be clear, friends, that the Constitution of India is the outcome of the Indian national movement. मतलब अगर आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया को नहीं मानते, फिर आप इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट की लेजिटिमेसी को अंडरमाइन कर रहे हो. So, when you undermine the Constitution of India, it means you are undermining the concepts like democracy, liberty, justice, fraternity. It means you are attacking the very idea of India. And Maoists, they in fact burned the Constitution of India. Do you know this? And because they want to establish the People's Republic of India, मतलब जैसे चाइना है वैसा ही वो बनाना चाहते हैं थ्रू आर्म्ड स्ट्रगल, जैसा माओ जेडोंग ने किया था 1949 में. सेम स्ट्रेटजी है उनकी. Clear? That's why Mao Zedong is the ideological father of the Naxalite movement in India. So they undermine the Constitution of India. They do not believe in the Constitution of India. It means they attack the very idea of India. They attack the basic fundamental law of India. Means they do not believe in the legitimacy of the Indian state. That's why they are a problem. Because अगर आप देखोगे जिस एग्जामिनेशन के लिए आप फाइट कर रहे हो वो भी तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं बनाया है. It's Article 312 that has created the All India Services. And UPSC itself is a constitutional body. So if in your answers you start defending Naxalite violence, which undermine the very idea of Constitution of India, how can you be welcomed into the services? You can understand that. Clear? Because Naxalism, it attacks the idea of India. It is against the Constitution of India. That's why they are problematic. First reason. Second, deprives the marginalized sections from development. देखो जो Naxalism का पूरा मूवमेंट है वो इस बात पे बेस्ड है that development has not reached these areas, and because development has not reached, now it's a moral responsibility to give a fitting reply to the establishment. But आपने कितनी बार सुना है कि मोबाइल टावर नक्सलियों ने उड़ा दिया या कोई ब्रिज बन रहा था नक्सलियों ने उड़ा दिया? It means they use landmines, ID explosions, and different kinds of methodologies. You would see that they use all these techniques to deprive the people from the development. And what kind of people? Marginalized section. Those who are at the fringes of the society. Like the tribals, the poor, the illiterate. They deprive those people. Do you understand this? And many a times by force. Think of schools in the Bastar district, in areas like say Abujmar, or in areas like Dantewada, in rural pockets of Dantewada. You'll see that if anybody attempts to attend these schools, there is Naxalite violence against those people. And if you do not go to school, obviously you are deprived of development. Unless there is educational development, there cannot be any economic development or social development. So the Naxalites, they deprive the marginalized sections. Though they claim that they are fighting for the marginalized, they stop the current of development in the rural areas, especially the tribal areas. Parallel extrajudicial trials and executions. इसके लिए Naxalism is very hated among various sections of the people in India, is that because they do not believe in the Constitution of India, obviously they would not believe in the Supreme Court or the judiciary which is created under the Constitution of India. They believe rather in the communist or the Naxal form of trials in courts which are actually kangaroo courts. What are kangaroo courts? Kangaroo courts वो है जहां पर तुरंत फैसला होता है. It means you are not given any chance of appeal. Even false witnesses can be produced and there is no counter effort to verify the witnesses. It means the defense line of argument is not entertained. Like what happens in China? Even we saw that in the last session when we were doing capital punishment, we saw that China executes the largest number of people. And largest number of executions are possible only when the trial is short. And the trial is short only when you do not give the alleged criminal the opportunity to defend himself. देखो इंडिया और चाइना के जो जस्टिस सिस्टम है उसमें फर्क क्या है? बिल्कुल सीधा सा फर्क है. इंडिया में यह है कि 1000 गुनहगार बच जाएं पर एक भी बेगुनाह ना मरे, कोई निर्दोष की जान नहीं जानी चाहिए. दैट्स व्हाट इज द इंडियन जुडिशियल सिस्टम. चाइनीज सिस्टम इज 1000 बेगुनाह मर जाए पर एक भी गुनहगार ना बचे. So you can understand that the Naxalites, they also hold parallel extrajudicial trials. Suppose the Naxalites, on the eve of, say, the purchase of grains by the government from the farmers, they would put a banner in the villages that nobody should sell the grains to the government. And if grains are sold, it would be considered as a betrayal to the Naxalite movement or the People's War. It should also be construed as an attempt to co-opt with the bourgeois capitalist system. ये एक नोटिस लगा दिया कि कोई भी अपना गेहूं चावल जो भी उगा रहे हो, you will not sell this to the government. As simple as that. Clear? Now, suppose someone does that. Suppose someone just goes in and sells those things to the government. He is dragged out of his home in front of a group of people who act as a court, and he is either shot in front of all of them or hanged to a tree. Public hangings, which is against human rights. But again, you would see the Maoist sympathizers in the urban areas, they keep a mummed silence over it. They just neglect it because it does not suit their ideological perspective. Clear? Strategic alliances with the ISI and terror outfits. Obviously, ISI, the Pakistani intelligence agency, and the terror outfits like Jamaat-ud-Dawa, Lashkar-e-Toiba, etc. There are enough IB reports to this direction that there are some links between the Maoists and between the terror groups. Not only there is link of the Maoists with the terror groups, but with also other Maoist groups which are there in Nepal or which are there in Myanmar. इनके साथ भी इनके link हैं. And all activities are anti-India activities. They are against the Constitution of India, against the democratically elected government of India, against the idea of democracy. Because you know, in the communist world there is no place for democracy. How can they entertain democracy? So that's why they are a headache. Attacks the political diversity of India. Obviously, you know, they want to establish one party rule. One man, one party, one rule. Very much similar to how Mao Zedong had. And you know, in the 1976 Cultural Revolution, Mao Zedong ने क्या किया था? He attacked all symbols of cultural identity and said that these are the reasons why China is behind. And in 1949, it was established that there will be only one party, that would be the Communist Party of China. उसमें elections तो होते हैं, but you know there is only this Politburo, a member of, say, a top-notch leadership of, say, 12 members जो उसमें high profile होते हैं Politburo में, वही decide करते हैं कि कौन होगा president, कौन होगा prime minister. And Xi Jinping has been appointed as leader for life. Hong Kong में क्या हो रहा है? We saw that in the last class, that when there is a pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, how does the Chinese Communist state reacts with a leonine form of violence? Do you understand that? And if the Naxalite movement is based on the Maoist ideology, you can understand that what wrong it would inflict on the idea of India. Clear? So it attacks the political diversity of India. You must be knowing that some of the Congress leaders, they were ambushed in Sukma, and they were ambushed because they were the supporters of Salwa Judum. Salwa Judum was an initiative, we will see about it in some time. It was an initiative against the Naxalites. Celebrates violence as a method to attain political objectives. वो तो बोलते ही हैं that the power flows through the barrel of the gun. तो अगर वायलेंस से ही हम सब अपने अपने पॉलिटिकल ऑब्जेक्टिव्स अटेन करने की कोशिश करें, then in no time there will be a civil war in the country. And if there is violence, there cannot be development, because investors would shed away from an area which is prone to violence. Syria में बहुत FDI आ रहा है क्या? Or what is happening in Afghanistan? What is happening in Palestine? Or what is happening now in Azerbaijan, Armenia? क्या लगता है आपको कि अगर लड़ाइयां होती रहेंगी, वायलेंस होता रहेगा, economists and investors they would get encouraged, or even if the government establishes business, it would be peaceful? It will not be, because the moment you are dissatisfied with the government, violence then becomes a norm of the society. And if at a larger political perspective, violence is accepted as a legitimate tool to attain political change, then in no time there is a trickle down effect, and in the local level of the society also violence becomes very popular. That's why you see in areas like Jharkhand, you'll see that violence that has permeated to the lower sections of the society. And these areas today, if you want to have a gun or something like that, illegal weapon, you can easily get them. Same is true with some areas of West Bengal which are affected by the Maoist violence. We should not forget that it is Naxalbari in West Bengal from where the entire movement started. Today the influence is less in West Bengal, but nevertheless it still exists. Continues war against the Indian state. So there's a relentless war. It means you cannot come to a negotiating table with them. There is no compromise, give and take or something like that. There is a continuous war. आप कुछ भी कर लो. The idea is to destroy the Constitution of India, and the peace talks that you will hold will be under the light of the Constitution of India. अब Constitution पे ही यकीन नहीं है तो कितना भी peace talk रखना है रख लो. Ultimately, this is a continuous struggle against the Indian state. Do you understand that? That's why it has been included as an internal security problem. GS paper 3 में तो आप समझ सकते हो, and the syllabus was amended in 2013. So there is a kind of cross-party, you can say, agreement that Naxalism is a challenge. In fact, the biggest challenge to internal security. Links with organized crimes, be it drug trafficking, child trafficking, smuggling, extortion. These are all methods which are used by the Naxalites to raise funds to purchase weapons. And they have links with the ISI, they have links with the terror outfits, they have links with the Maoists in Myanmar, they have links with the Maoists in China, they have links with the Maoists in Nepal. तो weapons तो मिल जाते हैं, लेकिन पैसे भी तो देने पड़ते हैं weapons के लिए. तो वो कहाँ से देते हैं ये? They take the drugs and they supply the drugs here so that they get the money out of it. Child trafficking, child prostitution, be it your arms trafficking or any form of organized criminal activity, or extortion, murder, contract killing, smuggling, all the organized criminals, they have either direct links to the Naxalites or the cadres are same. देखो, even the Maoist commander, जो इनका area commander होता है किसी area में, he is dedicated to this organized crime method at times, because it gives him quick revenue, and quick revenue gives quick arms, quick recruits, and thus the war can be protracted. Clear? So these are the reasons why Naxalism is a challenge for India. Let us have a look at what steps have been taken so far to curb Naxalism. क्या किया गया है to curb Naxalism? First, Operation Green Hunt. This was launched in 2010, and this is one of the most successful operations against Naxalism. And what has happened? Let us have a look. It was started in 2010, and massive deployment of security forces was done in the Naxal affected areas from 223 districts that were affected due to Naxalism. In year 2010, the last data that we had it for the year 2019, it came down to 90. मतलब 10 साल में अगर आप देखोगे तो आधे से भी कम हो गया due to this Operation Green Hunt. What is Operation Green Hunt? Massive deployment of security forces in the Naxal affected regions. Second, police modernization schemes. Two types of modernization has happened with respect to the state police. First, modernization with respect to technology and weaponry, and second, modernization with respect to training, so as to give a response to the guerrilla warfare tactics. Clear? तो ये भी किया गया है. Mine protected vehicles. Who can forget the 74 CRPF Jawans who laid their life in the line of duty as they were blown away by an IED blast in Dantewada? Who can forget that, the gruesome killing of those Jawans? The mine protected vehicles that have been deployed now by the government, you'd see that they act as a shield against those, but still you see that not all vehicles are mine protected, so therefore the casualties are still going on. And every day you would hear one or the other casualty, either to a security personnel or to a civilian in the region. To reduce the number of casualties due to the use of IED by the Naxalites. This was done especially after the Dantewada IED blast. Establishment of National Security Guard hubs. 4 hubs have been established: Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad and Mumbai. Now these security hubs, you will see that they provide the training, they provide the material, and they also provide the strategy to fight the Naxals in the Red Corridor. Sanctioning of new specialized India Reserve Battalion. Now, these battalions are often, they are armed by commandos. These battalions, they are trained to fight in hostile and hardship regions. It means that they can sustain the fight even in a situation of stress. So these specialized forces have been created. Special infrastructure scheme for the states of Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Odisha to raise special task force to combat left wing extremism. So task force भी बनाए गए हैं बहुत सारे states में. See, states like West Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh also to some extent, they are also affected by the Naxal violence, but the propensity or the degree of effect is much more in states like Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh, Odisha or Maharashtra also. Now, let's have a look. What steps have been taken so far? We are still continuing with that. Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. It has been amended to give more stringent punishment to those who are engaged in anti-India activities. Security related expenditure scheme. Now what has happened under this? The government, central government reimburses the state government which are fighting the left wing extremists. Especially you will see that some package was received by the Chhattisgarh Chief Minister, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, the Odisha Chief Minister and Jharkhand Chief Minister, because they were fighting against the Maoists. Civic action program to bridge the gaps between security forces and local people through personal interaction. You would see many times that the CRPF will organize several sporting activities, cultural activities, so as to engage with the rural tribal youth and to disengage them from Naxalism. So this is also a civic action programs have been launched. This is also a step that has been taken. Media plan. Under the scheme, activities like tribal youth exchange programs organized by the Nehru Yuva Kendras, radio jingles, documentaries, pamphlets, etc. are being conducted. It means it's a kind of a media interaction with the help of radio, with the help of drama, theatre, etc. A kind of awareness is created in them against the Naxal movement, how it can hurt their freedom and liberty and the idea of democracy in the long run. That is what is taught through these plans. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. This has been launched, it's an old scheme which has been launched to create all-weather connectivity in rural areas. It has twin benefits. First, swift movement of security personnel in times of problems, and it also provides connectivity between the villages and the district headquarters and facilitates economic development. National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, जो नरेगा है, आपको पता है, that this is also an important scheme. Now, this provides 100-day guaranteed employment to every able-bodied adult who is willing to work, or voluntary employment. So it also keeps them away from the Naxal ideology, especially during the non-agricultural season. Aspirational district program. Monitoring of aspirational district program in 35 left-wing affected district. Aspirational district is to make these districts as ideal districts by encouraging development, social and economic in these areas. Salva Judum. Now Salva Judum, it's a word of the Gondi language. It means peace or march peace or a march of peace. Under that, what happened was that the Chhattisgarh police, it engaged the tribal youth and asked them to form groups and supplied them with weapons and made these groups to fight against the Naxalites. A good idea. There was a lot of success in the Salva Judum initiative, but Supreme Court declared it as unconstitutional and void. Aisa kyun? Because the state police became the second brother and or the junior partner, whereas these militias or the tribal state funded, state backed, state weapon supplied groups, they became the forerunners in the front. They came in the fight against Naxalism. And court said that you cannot use the civilians as shields. Do you understand that? And therefore the Salva Judum operation was declared unconstitutional and void. Operation Greyhound. This was launched by the Andhra Pradesh police. It was a strategic maneuver against the Naxalites in Telangana, which at that time was part of Andhra Pradesh. It has two very important parts. First is swift action against any case of violence, and second is a relentless approach against Naxalite violence. And Operation Greyhound जो launch हुआ था आंध्र प्रदेश में, आप देखोगे they were able to throw the Naxalites out of the state. Andhra Pradesh has done excellently well in fighting Naxal violence, and all those Naxalites they took refuge in either Maharashtra or Chhattisgarh or Odisha. So these are the steps that have been taken, and recently you see that has been in news is the samadhan approach. It was launched in 2017. Every word stands for a particular thing. S stands for smart leadership. The archaic leadership, the obsolete approach is also one of the major reasons for the setback that the security forces face often in those areas. A stands for aggressive strategy. It means you should not wait and watch, rather you should take the lead, take the battle to the Naxalites rather than waiting for giving a proper response. M stands for motivation and training. Motivation to the armed forces and training to the armed forces. A is actionable intelligence. Many times what happened was the intelligence was there, but either it was so fragmented that कि जब तक आप इंटेलिजेंस के पीसेस को ज्वाइन करते थे और एक प्रॉपर इंफॉर्मेशन उससे गैदर करते थे, उससे पहले ही जो काम होना था वो हो जाता था. And this happened because of no collective approach in creating the intelligence and lack of communication between the different intelligence agencies like the central intelligence agencies, the state intelligence agencies, the police intelligence agencies, all of that. Clear? So actionable intelligence means that intelligence over which action can be taken. उस पे कोई step लिया जा सके. Dashboard based KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and KRAs, which are key result areas, means like you have a dashboard when you go to say something like the student portal or something like that. So they also have created dashboards, and in that dashboards they are keeping a gauge on the performance, that these are the indicators which you need to fulfill and up to that degree, and the results that are flowing when you maintain those performance standards. Clear? H is for harnessing technology. Harnessing means using technology. For example, think of drone technology or the unmanned aerial vehicle. Think of the technologies that use sound waves or something like that, or infrared technologies. These infrared lights, because most of the Naxals, they make movement in the dense forest during nights, and for that you need infrared cameras or infrared based weapons, and these are technologies, and you need UAVs or drones to keep an eye over the Naxalite movement or the Naxal movement rather, in the jungle areas during the wee hours of the day. A is action plan for each theater. देखो होता क्या था, एक कॉमन स्ट्रेटेजी होती थी that this is what is our strategy and this is how we will fight Naxal violence in India. And the same strategy आप विदर्भ पे भी लगाते थे, दंडकारण्य पे भी लगाते थे, वही स्ट्रेटेजी आप झारखंड में भी ले जाते थे, वही स्ट्रेटेजी तेलंगाना में भी यूज हो रहा है, वही स्ट्रेटेजी बिहार, बंगाल, उड़ीसा, हर जगह सेम स्ट्रेटेजी. But there are geographical and demographical variations in these areas. And therefore the strategy should be innovative enough and it should be such that the implementers can improvise with respect to the demands of the region. So हर theater के लिए आपके पास एक strategy होनी चाहिए. Also, you can think it in this manner that sometimes the war is against the state, but sometimes the Naxalites are engaged in organized criminal crime or in criminal activities. So you need to have two kinds of strategies there. Clear? Further, how to engage the youth, how to disengage them from Naxal violence, how to demotivate the Naxalites in the region, how to keep the forces motivated. All these require a specialized strategy, but एक common strategy नहीं होनी चाहिए. मतलब ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए कि सर दर्द हो, पेट दर्द हो या पैर दर्द हो या हाथ दर्द हो, एक ही दवाई खा रहे हैं आप. There has to be different medicines for different kinds of pain. N is for no access to financing. देखो, if you look at the 70 years, especially after 2010, when Operation Green Hunt was launched, or success of Operation Greyhound, the backbone of Naxalism is almost broken in India. It still persists, but it is not as strong as it was, say, in 2011, 2012, 2013. 2012 और 13 में तो बहुत ज़्यादा cases आए थे Naxalism के, but अगर आप देखोगे 13 onwards, the number of cases are dwindling. And why are they dwindling? One major reason is when the finance channels are cut off. Money laundering, terrorist financing, organized criminal activity engendered money. All these kind of money flow into the finances of the Maoists. देखो Maoist पैसे कैसे कैसे इकट्ठा करते हैं. पहला तरीका है इनका that they take money directly from the people by coercing them. And if people cannot give them money, they take material so as to support their cadres because they need some stocks, some supplies to give them to their cadres. Second way is they engage in organized crime and take money from that. The third way is they get money through money laundering. Fourth is they get money from the terrorist links or the links through ISI. ISI आपको पता ही है that it pushes fake currency into India. तो ये तो एक बहुत बड़ा problem है. And they also get some money from the urban sympathizers who very readily dedicate funds to the Naxal cause through obviously illicit channels. And the money mostly moves in the form of cash. Every area commander, जो Naxalism में आप देखोगे कि हर area का एक area commander होता है, that area commander, he has the access to such resources and he can use those resources for the cause of the people's war. And I put the people's in inverted commas because you understand that if you look deeper, it is anti-democracy, anti-freedom. So it is anti-people's war, in fact. But still, the Naxalites call it people's war or pro-people's war. Clear? And they use it very lavishly for their cause. तो समाधान क्या है? समाधान है ये that you create a smart leadership, build an aggressive strategy, do motivation and training, have actionable intelligence, have a dashboard kind of approach so as to keep track of performance indicators and results, harness the use of technology, action plan for each theater, it means a variegated strategy, not a common strategy, and cut the sources from which money flows into the hands of the Naxalites. Clear? What else can be done? Bridge the governance and developmental deficit. ये तो अपने आप में ही एक समझने वाली बात है, that you try to ensure that the governance deficit and the developmental deficit, it means the administrative rights and the economic rights, they are established in those areas. Modernize the counter Naxal forces, modernization, training modernization, the equipment modernization, psychological modernization, all of that. Recalibrate the surrender and rehabilitation policy. देखो एक problem और है. Let's face it, that there are some cadres who get fed up with the Naxalite strategy, or they get frustrated with the Naxalite strategy, and they want to submit, they want to surrender, come back into the mainstream society. The problem is that we do not have a good surrender and rehabilitation policy, because if he surrenders, he's always under the threat that there may be a Maoist who may come any day to his home and avenge his betrayal, or he is under the apprehension that even after surrender he would not be able to integrate with the society. तो जिसे कहते हैं ना घर का ना घाट का, वैसा होकर रह जाते हैं. That's why we need to build a proper surrender and rehabilitation policy, including reintegration with the mainstream society. Encourage dialogue, though this is more, you can say, very superficial in nature, because dialogue is not entertained in the Maoist protracted people's war strategy. There is no place for dialogue, but still we should encourage dialogue. When we encourage dialogue, or we ask the Naxalites to down their weapons, shun violence, and come over to the negotiating table, then we can better appreciate the problems of the regions also. And therefore, we should, as a civilized society and as adherents of the Indian Constitution, never put this channel out of equation. We should always stick to this part. Implement the provisions of the FRA without fail. What is FRA? Forest Rights Act. देखो, आदिवासी जो हैं वो कुछ फल, कुछ पत्ते, कुछ जड़ी बूटियां, ये वो हमेशा कलेक्ट करते हैं फॉरेस्ट से, और ऐसा वो करते आए हैं. The Forest Rights Act call them as minor forest produce and give the right to the local people to collect the minor forest produce without causing damage to the forests. Well, come on, we should learn from the tribals. The Adivasis, they have lived with the forest for generations. Who better than them know how to conserve the forests? And when you deprive them from their right, which is constitutionally and legally mandated upon them, then you are doing serious injustice. And this happens mostly because of governance deficit. क्योंकि आपने law अच्छे से लगाया नहीं, that's a governance deficit. Do you understand that? And therefore implement the provisions of the Forest Rights Act without any kind of failure. It means strict implementation of the rights. Augment the security budget of the state government. Especially states like Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, you will see that the state budget is very thin. And obviously these are states which are still struggling, grappling with poverty, fighting unemployment, fighting diseases, malnourishment, etc. So there is always scarcity of funds with these states. So what we need to do is, we need to augment the resources of these states. What resources? The budgetary resources of the state governments. कैसे हो सकता है? जैसे 14th Finance Commission ने किया है, 42% डिवॉल्व कर दिया टू द स्टेट्स, ऐसे कुछ और इस पे ओवर एंड अबव एक कैटेगरी क्रिएट की जा सकती है फॉर दीज स्टेट्स, और एक टाइम फ्रेम में भी कर दो. ऐसा मत कर दो कि इसे एक राइट बना दो कि अब वो लेते ही जा रहे एक्स्ट्रा पैसा, भले कुछ हो ना हो, बट एक टाइम फ्रेम दे दो, एंड देन यू आस्क दैट यू परफॉर्म एंड यू अर्न मोर, समथिंग लाइक दैट. Bring police reforms to build strong professional task force. And you know there are certain problems with the police forces also, mostly in terms of training, agility, etc., and fitness also to a great extent. So you know that if we bring or we modernize the police forces, modernization also incorporates the angle of creating a sensitive police force, sensitive to the demands of the people of the region. Clear? It's like showing empathy, which is the foundational value for civil services. So ये चाहिए हमको. Launch an ideological battle grounded on the values of the Indian Constitution. देखो है तो after all एक ideology, Maoist ideology, extreme far left radical ideology which believes in violence. ठीक है, तो इस आइडियोलॉजिकल वॉर को आप कितनी भी हथियारों से लड़ लो, डेवलपमेंट से लड़ लो, आप नहीं जीत सकते जब तक आप इसको आइडियोलॉजी से ना फाइट करो. नाउ हियर व्हेन यू राइट योर आंसर्स, नो नीड ऑफ राइटिंग ideology based on say any ism. Rather you should write ideology which is based on the values of Indian Constitution. ऐसे मत लिखना कि कैपिटलिज्म से अब लड़ा जा सकता है इसके खिलाफ, या लिबरलिज्म से लड़ा जा सकता है, या लिबर्टेरियनिज्म से लड़ा जा सकता है, या मॉडरेशन से लड़ा जा सकता है. These are different political ideologies along the political spectrum. If political science is your optional, you understand what I'm saying. But the point is, what you need to understand is that we must fight the Naxalites ideologically on the basis of the values which are ingrained in the Indian Constitution. वो fundamental pillars Indian Constitution के, उनको अपना हथियार बनाओ, ideological weapon, and fight the Naxalites through those weapons. And what are these values? Liberty, justice, democracy, republic, freedom. Do you understand that? Fraternity. All those values which are cherished in the preamble to the Constitution of India. Clear? So raise your ideological battle against the Naxalite ideology on the basis of these values. Clear? Because the Naxalites, they do not consider the Constitution as a legal document. They do not worship it the way we do. For us, the Constitution is everything. But for the Naxalites, the Constitution is, I'm afraid to say, but like a piece of garbage. Anyhow, let's have a final look, or before we conclude this topic, there is a very famous debate with respect to, should we employ the army against the Naxals? बहुत सारे लोग बोलते हैं, अरे आर्मी ले आओ, 2 दिन में सफाया कर देंगे सारे नक्सल्स का. क्या कर सकती है आर्मी ऐसा? क्या आर्मी को लाना सही है in the first place? And if not army, then how can we win the war against Naxalism? Well, let me tell you, what are the advantages of bringing army? First, army is highly professional. Definitely will not take them more than few weeks to completely clean the area from the Naxal violence. It will not take them more than few weeks. Further, army is trained to retaliate force by force. So if the Naxalites use force, army can use force of a greater proportion. And that's why army can win the battle very easily against Naxalism. Army also has talented officers, great commanders, and you have commandos. One black cat commando, is enough for a large area. Through his intelligence, through his agility, and through his maneuvers, he can clean the area in no time. But is it the right way? Is it appropriate to engage army against the Naxals? Well, first, army की main responsibility क्या है? It is external security, securing the borders of India. Whereas Naxalism is a problem of internal security. Bring the army into internal affairs is not good, first. Second, if the army will come in, army will definitely use violence. And what kind of message will it give to the international community that here is a country which is using its army against its own people? After all, the people are the people of India. Do you understand this? तो फिर तो बिल्कुल हम भी सीरिया बन जाएंगे या कोई पाकिस्तान बन जाएंगे जो अपनी ही आर्मी अपने लोगों के खिलाफ यूज करती है, जैसे पाकिस्तान इज डूइंग इन बलूचिस्तान. And third great disadvantage of using army is that you will distract the army from its major focus areas. And what are the major focus areas? To protect the infiltration into India, to have an offensive strategy against terror outfits, or be in a prepared war mode in case there is a war with China or Pakistan or any other country. So what is the alternative? This is the alternative. Do you understand this? This is the alternative along with what government has already done. Green Hunt, Greyhound, Salva Judum, सब कुछ हो सकता है. Obviously, cut the unconstitutional part in Salva Judum and things like samadhan. Clear? देखो, एक चीज याद रखो. When you will write your answers, never defend the Naxalist ideology. क्योंकि अगर आपने एक लाइन भी लिख दिया कि जहां पर आप नक्सलिज्म को डिफेंड कर रहे हो आइडियोलॉजिकली और इंडियन स्टेट को क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे हो या इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन या उसके ईथॉस को क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे हो, then definitely your chances of selection it dwindles significantly. Clear? So that is our first topic. Let us have a look at a question from this topic. So this is our question for the day from this topic. Naxalism is the single largest threat to national security that undermines the idea of India. In the context of the above statement, discuss the internal security challenges created by Naxalism and suggest measures to curb such threats. तो इसमें करना क्या है? सबसे पहले तो आप define करो what is Naxalism, a brief history of how Charu Majumdar, Kanu Sanyal, Jangal Santhal and how do they build the movement. What are their objectives? Put that in a box, that what are the objectives of the Naxals. Then put in another box the Protracted Peoples War strategy, armed rebellion, mass mobilization, strategic alliances without getting co-opted into the system. Mao Zedong, the ideological father for the Naxalite movement. Then the reasons for the Naxalite movement, the causes for the Naxal violence, the steps that have been taken by the government, go up to samadhan. Then what more we need to do. Clear? And finally, in conclusion, you can also include the angle of whether it is right to engage the army against the Naxals or not. Clear? So that is our first topic of the day. Let us move to the next topic, which is GAGANYAAN, India's maiden manned space mission. देखो, India is set to attain a huge space feat. If everything goes well, by the year 2022, we will be able to put a man in space using indigenous space technologies. It's an ambitious project of ISRO. Under the GAGANYAAN mission, 2 unmanned missions will be followed by a manned mission, and the target is 2022. It is in news because the Minister of Space, Dr. Jitendra Singh, has said that despite the COVID setback, India's GAGANYAAN mission is on track. तो देख लेते हैं कि ये गगनयान मिशन है क्या. Gaganyaan is India's maiden human space mission that would take Indian astronauts to space by 2022. That is when we will be completing 75 years of our independence. See, Rakesh Sharma भी तो cosmonaut थे. He went into space, and we have Sunita Williams and so many of Indians or Indian origin people who have been into space. Why are we so excited about it? We are so excited about it because it is India's indigenous effort. Indians have been into space, obviously. Like Rakesh Sharma has gone into space with the help of the Soviets, and we know Sunita Williams, how she has been into the International Space Station and the shuttle program and all of that. There are other Indians as well. But this is for the first time that India on its own is trying to send people into space. मतलब भारत पहली बार अपने आप से लोगों को स्पेस में भेज रहा है without the help of any other external space agency. Do you understand this? Means the launch vehicle that would be created in India, the engine would be created in India, the astronauts would be Indians, the service module would be Indian, and entire the re-entry and recovery technology would be Indian. It's a total indigenous project. Clear? It's a collaboration between ISRO and Indian Air Force. So let's have a look at this. The project aims to send astronauts to the lower orbit of the Earth. It means the lower Earth orbit. वहां पर भेजने की तैयारी हो रही है. And the spacecraft will have a capsule with adequate supply of oxygen and other essential materials. Obviously, the support system will be there. ISRO is working in tandem with the IAF for the mission, or the Indian Air Force. देखो, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that Indian astronauts will be known as Vyomnauts or Vyomyatri. Vyom is a Sanskrit word which means space. Clear? So the Indian astronauts will be known as Vyomnauts. This is the Gaganyaan mission. After Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, it is Gaganyaan जिसकी बारी है. तो चलो देख लेते हैं कि ये मिशन की ट्रैजेक्टरी कैसी होगी. So look at this, that the GSLV Mark III human adapted, मतलब GSLV Mark III is a launch vehicle of ISRO. Like we have another launch vehicle which is PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. This is GSLV Mark III. GSLV Mark III human adapted form. It will be launched from Sriharikota, which is ISRO's launch pad, and it will take 16 minutes, just 16 minutes. So you can understand its thrust and the velocity with which it is moving. It would go into the lower Earth orbit. Now, as it would go into the lower Earth orbit, it would be first opening up its solar panels. जैसे ही ये launch vehicle, and you know, as the launch vehicle goes up, it shuns the parts of it. There are different stages of a launch vehicle, like 3-stage, 4-stage launch vehicle. It uses different kind of fuels like solid, liquid, cryogenic. I'm not going into the details of that because it will just take us away from the topic. But GSLV Mark III, as it goes high into the lower Earth orbit, you will see that it would place the Gaganyaan into the lower Earth orbit. The Gaganyaan, once it enters into the lower Earth orbit, first it will open its solar panels. जैसे एक चिड़िया पंख फैलाती है, it will open its solar panels so as to gain energy from the sun, which would be necessary. It would spend, if everything goes well, it would spend 5 to 7 days in space. मतलब एक हफ्ते का टाइम मैक्सिमम स्पेस में रहेंगे 3 Indian Vyomnauts or astronauts, as you want to call them. Then after that, the module will reorient itself. It means it will change its orientation. Like if it is east-west, it would change from west-east. So it would change its orientation because it is making an effort to re-enter. Then it would deboost. As it deboosts, and then there would be a separation of the module, and the module in which the astronauts would be placed, it will then open a parachute which would be attached at the top of its dashboard, and it will fall off near the Gujarat coast. Do you understand this? This is the entire trajectory of the manned mission or the Gaganyaan. The crew recovery module is 15 to 20 minutes. It means once it falls or splashes into the ocean, then it would be recovered back in 15 to 20 minutes. Cost कितना है देखो. The cost has been fixed at within 10,000 crores. और अगर ये हो गया इतने कम कीमत में, you must be thinking that 10,000 crores is too much, but it is nothing when you look at the budget of NASA, Roscosmos, JAXA or European Space Agency. मतलब जापान हो या रशिया हो या यूरोपियन यूनियन हो या अमेरिका हो, वो जितना पैसा लगाते हैं एक मैन्ड मिशन के लिए, या चाइनीज स्पेस एजेंसी, किसी को भी ले लो आप. When you look at this, ISRO is anyhow very popular, cost efficient. Indians तो होते भी हैं cost efficient. They can manage more within less resources. So it will be done if everything goes well. It would be achieved within the target of 10,000 crores Indian rupees. Keep this in mind. These are not dollars. Clear? Launch date is 2022. India to be the 4th nation to launch a manned space flight mission after the US, Russia and China. It means even Japan and European Union have not had that kind of privilege. Clear? Just have a look one more time at the trajectory. It will take off from Sriharikota with the help of GSLV Mark III, man adapted, because there would be a man sitting capsule, a service module with adequate oxygen and other facilities. Then it would reach the lower Earth orbit, it will open its solar panels, it would reorient itself, it will deboost, then separate, and the part or the section where the astronauts or the Vyomnauts are sitting at the fag end of it, there would be a parachute which would open, and then with the help of these parachute, the module will splash in the ocean, the Arabian Sea off the Gujarat coast, from where it would be recovered by the Indian Navy, obviously with under the guidance of ISRO, in 15 to 20 minutes. मतलब 16 मिनट लगेंगे पहुंचने में, और इंडियन ओशन में स्प्लैश करने के बाद 15 से 20 मिनट में वापस ये कोस्ट पर आ जाएंगे. लेट्स हैव फ्यू मोर have a look at few more detailed things of this Gaganyaan mission. So this is what we are talking about. See, this is the Gaganyaan actually. बाकी तो नीचे तो rocket है जो उसे लेकर जा रहा है, the GSLV Mark III. Orbital module, it has 3 astronauts, so 3 Vyomnauts, 7 days in space. If everything goes well. अच्छा, एक चीज मैं आपको बता दूं, that in many space programs you would see that there is a great chance of some mishap, और इसकी वजह से ये मिशन अबॉर्ट भी करना जाना चाहिए जब जरूरत पड़े. So that thing has also been incorporated here. So there is a crew module and a service module. The crew module has a habitat for astronauts, habitat in minimum gravity or zero gravity kind of situation, like what you see into the International Space Station, something like that. Service module does on orbit servicing. It means once you are in the orbit, this service module will provide all the services to the crew so that they can conduct their research. Clear? And this is the GSLV Mark III human rated or human adapted. ये वो नहीं है. It has strap-on boosters. Strap-on boosters uses solid fuel in order to give it thrust. Clear? GSLV Mark III uses cryogenic engine. So ये भी एक बहुत अच्छी बात है जो आप ध्यान में रखो. I'm not going into details of it, right? Because this is a very pre kind of thing. Okay, let's have a look one more time at the crew module and the service module. The crew module, it has an apex ring with scope for future docking mechanism setup. It means if you want to attach itself to a international space station, so you have to dock in there. So it has that docking mechanism. Apex cover containing stowed parachutes or stowed parachute. These are those parachutes. If you can see, just look here. यहाँ से जैसे ये नीचे आ रहा है तो आपको दिख रहा है एक पैराशूट खुलता हुआ. ये वही पैराशूट्स हैं जो यहाँ पर हैं. It's encapsulated here, so you are stowed in there. Then you have a hatch door with a viewport. Hatch door with a viewport to observe the space, to take pictures, to study the space. Wonderful opportunity for Indian astronauts, you can understand. Then it has a boat tail covered in medium density ablative tiles so as to protect them from the heat of the sun, because they would be very near to the sun. Heat shield to shield them from the service module's heat, because it has solar panels and all of this, so you can understand that. Umbilical connection and severance system. Umbilical connection is like when a child is born, there is an umbilical cord. So there is this umbilical connection with the service module of the crew module, and this umbilical cord, it breaks off, or it will break off as the module returns to Earth. If you want to see this, have a look at this. यहाँ पे देखो कि ये separation हो जा रहा है, और ये separation तभी possible है when there is only an umbilical cord. अगर आपने soldering iron से या समझ लो welding कर दिया हो, so how this separation is possible under that circumstance. Then you have folded solar panels. Obviously these are folded for now, but the moment they go into the Earth orbit, lower Earth orbit, they would spread their wings very much like a magnificent hawk. Then you have radiators. Now radiators to radiate the heat, because otherwise it would get too much heated up. A 1.7 meters tall person for height reference, means he can walk into the सर क्रू मॉड्यूल, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस? ये क्रू मॉड्यूल में एस्ट्रोनॉट्स बैठेंगे, सर्विस मॉड्यूल में वो हर फैसिलिटी होगा जिससे इनको सर्विस मिलती रहे, क्लियर, इन स्पेस. Then you have a propulsion bay. This propulsion bay, and with the help of 5 liquid engines for in-orbit maneuvering. Why you have liquid engines? Liquid engines have a different, it can be controlled more. It can be put off also if necessary. But solid fuel, once it gets ignited, you cannot put it off. But it gives too much of thrust. That's why solid fuel is used especially in strap-on boosters and in the first stage of any launch vehicle. Clear? So, this is how the module would look like. देखो इंडिया ने तो स्पेस सूट भी अपना डिजाइन कर लिया है, एंड दिस आर द व्योम यात्री सूट और द व्योम नॉट्स सूट, एंड दिस इज हाउ इट लुक्स लाइक. एंड द इंडियन एयर फोर्स हैज ऑल्सो शॉर्टलिस्टेड 12 पोटेंशियल एस्ट्रोनॉट्स. कितने जाने वाले हैं? 3, पर कितने को पोटेंशियल सिलेक्ट किया गया है? 12. For India's first manned space mission, the GAGANYAAN project. Of them, 7 pilots have been sent to Russia for training. वो रोसकॉस्मोस के साथ हैं अभी, जो 12 हैं उनमें से 7 लोगों को तो भेज दिया गया है रोसकॉस्मोस के पास, and they are under training, and they are wearing the Indian astronomical suit. Clear? So this is the GAGANYAAN mission. चलो देख लेते हैं that what are the highlights of this mission. First, launch vehicle. A human-rated GSLV Mark III will be used to carry the orbital module, which will have a necessary provision for sustaining a 3-member crew for the duration of the mission, which is 5 to 7 days. But ये best possible situation है 7 days. Clear? Infrastructural facilities, the necessary infrastructure for crew training, realization of the flight system, and ground infrastructure will be established to support the GAGANYAAN project. ISRO is building a simulation system in order to give the Vyomnauts an experience beforehand of the conditions which they might encounter when they would go into lower Earth orbit, and for that infrastructure is being built. तो ये भी part है गगनयान project का ही. Third, other institutions in collaboration. ISRO will collaborate extensively with national agencies, laboratories, academia and industry to accomplish the Gaganyaan objectives. Keep this in mind. This is not an exclusive ISRO project. IAF तो है ही है इसमें. It's working in tandem with the ISRO. But there is also other kind of agencies like the different national laboratories, and there is good interaction with the industry and the academia. इट मीन्स यूनिवर्सिटी है जहाँ पर हो सकता है जैसे IISc बैंगलोर है, IITs है, IIM है, वहाँ पे जो साइंस को लेकर काम हो रहा है, स्पेशली स्पेस साइंस, प्लस देर आर सम इंडस्ट्रीज विच आर इनकॉर्पोरेटेड स्पेशली टू बिल्ड द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल फैसिलिटीज टू गेट देम to get the best money for value kind of thing by generating competition. Expenditure, the total fund requirement for the Gaganyaan program is within 10,000 crore. And let me tell you that when this was announced that India is going to launch a manned mission in 10,000 crores, within 10,000, मतलब ये तो upper limit है, इससे ज़्यादा पैसे नहीं मिलने वाले, तो 10,000 crores में जो होना है हो जाएगा. There was a kind of astonishment for the entire world, especially the space agencies of Russia and China and USA, because they have already done that. India would be the 4th nation to do that. That how they are going to achieve this. It was a kind of, they were bewildered, they were perplexed all over it. Program includes 2 unmanned flights, obviously I told you this, and then it would be followed by the manned flight as a part of the Gaganyaan mission. Vyom Mitra. अब ये एक चीज अच्छी इंपॉर्टेंट है जो आप देखो, अ हाफ ह्यूमन ह्यूमनॉइड रोबोट हैज बीन डेवलप्ड बाय इसरो फॉर एन अनमैन्ड स्पेस मिशन लेटर इन 2020. तो ये कब होने वाला है? जो मैन्ड मिशन है 2022 को होने वाला है, तो अभी भी टाइम है उसके लिए. बट इस साल 2020 में यू विल सी दैट इसरो विल लॉन्च द अनमैन्ड space mission in the lower Earth orbit as a, you can say, rehearsal for the manned mission, and it will do it with the help of one humanoid robot. Humanoid robot means that this is a robot which can interact like humans. It means it is based on the principles of artificial intelligence. उस रोबोट का नाम है व्योम मित्रा. It was also put on exhibition at the ISRO headquarters, and you'll see that many people came and took selfies with it. But anyhow, this is how the Vyom Mitra looks like. So this is the Vyom Mitra. You can understand that if we can call it she just for the sake of reference, you can understand, but it is actually it. It is not he or she. It's a robot. It's a humanoid robot which would help in the success of the manned mission. It will go into the unmanned mission. Clear? And who knows, maybe it will also accompany the astronauts if it has experience, because it has artificial intelligence, so it can give good feedback in crisis situations. What are the advantages of the Gaganyaan mission? चलो ये देख लेते हैं. First, spurs research and developmental activities in space sciences. No prizes for guessing. Obviously इतना बड़ा interest create हो रहा है पूरे country में, 2022 में होने वाला है. So you can understand 2020, 2021 and 2022 mains सबके लिए important है ये topic. 2023 के लिए भी है important topic. Do you understand that? Because तभी हो सकता है 2023 में उसके success story की बात की जाए. And it will spur research and developmental activities in the space sciences. Obviously, people will get attracted towards space sciences, and there will be more impetus towards space science research. Provides microgravity platform in space for future research, because once the Indian astronauts will experience the microgravity situation in low Earth orbit, you do not have zero gravity, but you have microgravity, very less gravity, negligible gravity. Clear? So that can be used in building India's future space station, or India's effort in collaborating with the International Space Station. Provides economic impetus and boost to industries, क्योंकि जो infrastructure बन रहा है simulation के लिए, वहाँ पे बहुत सारे industries का participation है. That's why it gives a kind of boost to the industries. Opens the door for greater private participation in space endeavors. Obviously, you know that what Elon Musk and his firm has done in USA. There is a possibility that India में भी ऐसी कोई company आ जाए because of these programs, and also because of the in-space program which ISRO has launched. Generates employment in space and industry sector because of the infrastructure, because of the management, because of the program. It's a huge project, so it will create a lot of employment, you can understand, especially for young brains. Opens the gates for ISRO for learning institution, because there is collaboration with academia, IIT, IISc, also the leading institutions and academicians. They would interact with it, learn, and they would give their feedbacks. So it opens the door for greater awakening with respect to space research. Involvement of IAF relates to future military space adventures. आपको पता है that America has become the first country to build a US fleet for fighting a space war. और क्या पता आज से 200 साल बाद स्पेस पे ही लड़ाइयां होने लगे. So if that is the case, the involvement of IAF or the Indian Air Force has ensured that it creates possibility for a future military adventure also into the space. The Gaganyaan mission provides a positive boost to space tourism. हो सकता है अब पहाड़ों पे तो शादी कर ली, समुद्र में भी हो गई शादी, स्पेस ही बचा है, तो हो सकता है अब वहाँ पे भी शादियाँ होने लगे. So or think of tourism or space tourism. People would like to explore the space. Like once after the World War II, there was huge enthusiasm regarding the exploration of the depth of the oceans. Maybe in the 22nd century, people would be more comfortable, or by the second half of the 21st century, who knows, people would be more comfortable in going out into the space. और उस टाइम पे in ISRO should not be a laggard. It should have the facilities so as to earn revenue from that regard. Motivates children to undertake space related studies. Now, stars and sky and what not, moon, sun, these are all interest for the child. A child is deeply interested in such kind of things, but the Indian educational curriculum takes him away from such kind of anxieties. But these kind of projects, because of their interaction, maybe they would facilitate further these kind of you can say aspirations in young minds. Fosters technological development. Obviously, India is developing its own man or human adapted GSLV rocket, the service module, the crew module, the space suit तो हमने बना ही लिया है. तो ये सब कुछ जो कर रहे हैं, it is giving a impetus to the technological development. Helps India to become a global space power. Obviously, raises the stature of ISRO, brings it at par with the European Space Agency, JAXA, NASA, Roscosmos, and the Chinese Space Agency. Clear? Let's have a look at the challenges. First challenge is the re-entry and recovery technology. Re-entry means that once the service module and the crew module has fulfilled its duration, it will attempt a return to the Earth. But as the module returns, you know, it should return at a certain angle with a certain speed. Otherwise, the friction of the atmosphere, it may burn the module and can create a lot of damage to the astronauts, or it can result into a space disaster. हमने देखा है US space shuttle के साथ क्या हुआ था. Do you understand that? Recovery means not only re-entry is necessary, it is also necessary that you recover the module safely without compromising the safety of the astronauts. Clear? Efficient crew escape system. It means if there is a mishap, there should be an escape system for the crew so that they can move out of it. Do you understand that? Ensuring continuous life support mechanisms. In space, you can understand, nothing is available. So oxygen, water, food and other necessities. You know, the continuous life support mechanisms or life support systems, they must be sustained. Establishing space communication. हमने अभी देखा था चंद्रयान 2 में, like what happened that as the it was about to land on moon, we saw that the communication was broken. And it was a heartbreak for the entire nation, but it was also a lesson for the entire nation that we need to work on our space communication. Clear? So these are the challenges. How to ensure that there is a safe re-entry and recovery. How to design the crew escape module. Ensure a continuous life supporting mechanism when they would be in lower Earth orbit, and establishing space communication. It means so as to be continuously in contact with the astronauts. Clear? What steps have been taken by ISRO to meet these challenges? Let's have a look at this. The first successful experimental flight of GSLV Mark III in 2014. But this would be human adapted. GSLV Mark III का successful test flight हो चुका है. Successful test flight of pad abortion test. Pad abort means like there is a launch pad. So in Sriharikota, from there it would be launched. So if something goes wrong, mission should be capable of aborting itself at the pad itself, not somewhere in the middle. Then the disaster cannot be checked. So successful pad abort test. This has also been conducted successfully by ISRO. The CRE module, atmospheric re-entry experiment spacecraft, or the CARE spacecraft. The CARE spacecraft has re-entered the atmosphere at about 80 km altitude and landed in the sea near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This is another achievement by ISRO in developing the re-entry and recovery technology. Successful test flight of the crew escape system. I'm talking about that system where the Vyomnauts can immediately escape in case of a danger, and you can understand the Vyom Mitra can give you advanced signals regarding the danger, so that humanoid robot also becomes very important. ISRO announced to launch the Indian data relay satellite system, obviously to improve the communication during the space missions. The environment control and life support system is meant to ensure that the conditions inside the crew module are good, fine for survival. So communication has been taken care of, the escape has been taken care of, the continuous supplies have been taken care of, the recovery and re-entry have been taken care of, and obviously the launch vehicle test has also been taken care of. So we are all set for the GAGANYAAN mission, and if everything goes well, then 2022, I hope by that time you are selected, you can find or you can read into the newspapers that India has successfully become the 4th country to put a man in space. Clear? Let's have a look at the question. The successful launch of ISRO's GAGANYAAN mission will not only unleash the potential of India's space sector, but it will also be the beginning of India's journey as a space superpower. So it will not only unleash the potential of India's space sector, मतलब स्पेस सेक्टर का जो पोटेंशियल है वही सिर्फ बाहर नहीं आएगा, इट विल ऑल्सो बी द बिगिनिंग, मतलब ये शुरुआत होगी इंडियाज जर्नी एज अ स्पेस सुपर पावर. देयर कैन बी डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ सुपर पावर, मिलिट्री सुपर पावर, इकोनॉमिक सुपर पावर, ये एक तरह का सुपर पावर है, स्पेस सुपर पावर. टुडे वी कैन से ओनली USA and Russia can be considered as space superpowers. European Space Agency, I'm not counting it because it's an amalgamation of different countries and all. Clear? So what you need to write in this, first in the introduction you should write about the Gaganyaan mission because the question directly asks about it, the features of the Gaganyaan mission. बहुत अच्छा होगा एक डायग्राम दिखाकर आप उसके ट्रैजेक्टरी को भी हाईलाइट कर दो और एक और डायग्राम बनाकर you can highlight the crew module, the space module and the GSLV rockets features एक छोटे से डायग्राम में. What are these? Then highlights of the program. Maybe if this will come as a 15 marker, तो 3 पेज मिलेंगे आपको, समझ लो. तो एक पेज में ये सब कुछ हो गया. दूसरे पेज में फर्स्ट हाफ में आप ये लिख दो that what are the highlights of the program and then what are the challenges of the program. That is second page. Third page, what ISRO has done and what would be the benefits of this program. That would be the final conclusion. Clear? And you know that we are studying in depth, but you have to learn the art of writing it in 250 words, and that's why writing becomes very crucial. And especially those people who practice writing on a daily basis, they generally gain more in this regard. पर वो जो सोचते हैं कि हाँ सब कुछ पढ़ लेंगे फिर एक दिन आएगा जब हम लिखेंगे, let me tell you very frankly, वो दिन नहीं आता कि जब आप सब कुछ आता हो आपको और आप लिख लेते हैं. It is much better that you start writing, and writing at least one question per day also will be of great advantage. And if you are going into 2020 mains, keep this in mind that then you cannot escape daily writing because it becomes crucial for your success. Let's move to the third topic. This is criminalization of politics in India. Now, what do we mean by criminalization of politics? Criminalization of politics simply means the entry of criminals, criminal tendency or criminal practices in the political life of a country. एकदम simple words में बोले तो यही है criminalization of politics in India. In India, you would see, especially from the late 70s, early 80s, the entry of mafias, dons, etc. in politics. They have surged. Clear? Criminalization of politics. The movement of money and muscle power in politics is a headache today for the Indian political system. Let's have a look at what do we mean by criminalization of politics. का मतलब क्या होता है पहले ये देख लेते हैं. The criminalization of politics means the participation of criminals in politics. Simple सी बात है. Which includes that criminals can contest in elections. They can also become members of the parliament or of the state legislature. बस इससे बुरा और क्या देखना रह गया है that criminals are getting into the parliament and into the state legislature. It means the lawbreakers are becoming lawmakers. That is the problem with respect to criminalization of politics. What are the various forms of criminalization of politics? The forms are intimidation of voters. It means you intimidate someone to vote against or for a certain candidate. Booth capturing, जिसके बारे में हम बहुत सुनते थे, and this is very common especially in the red corridor that we dealt in the first topic. The proliferation of non-serious candidates because they just go in to fill the numbers. Tampered electoral rolls, electoral roll जो होता है जिसमें वोटर लिस्ट होती है जो उसमें छेड़खानी, ये भी criminal activity है, and other polling irregularities. But let me show you some important thing. Clear? We have three important you can say bar graphs to compare. The first one is for 2009, this is 2014 and this is 2019. This shows, these shows द विनर्स विथ डिक्लेयर्ड क्रिमिनल केसेस, मतलब जिनमें क्रिमिनल केस था और वो डिक्लेयर हो गया, 30% था, 34%, और 2019 में 43% ऐसे लोग हैं पार्लियामेंट में बैठे हुए जिन पे क्रिमिनल केसेस हैं। तो आप समझ लो आगे, विनर्स विद डिक्लेयर्ड सीरियस क्रिमिनल केसेस लाइक मर्डर, रेप, एक्सटॉर्शन, स्मगलिंग, ट्रैफिकिंग, मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, ड्रग मेनेस, समथिंग लाइक दैट, टेरर फाइनेंसिंग, कुछ भी हो सकता है, सीरियस क्रिमिनल केसेस 14% थे 2009 में, 21% हो गए वैसे लोग 2014 में, और 29% हो गए हैं 2019 में। इट मीन्स बोथ द कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ पीपल who have serious criminal cases and criminal cases are growing with every election. Let us have a look at the Representation of Peoples Act and other relevant clauses and have a look at what does it says with respect to criminalization of politics. So we'll first looking at section 8 of Representation of Peoples Act. This relates to your GS paper 2, जहां पे आप देखोगे एक टॉपिक है जो लिखा हुआ है salient aspects of the Representation of Peoples Act. So criminalization of politics can come under that category. Section 8 of Representation of Peoples Act, तो ये section मैं आपके लिए पढ़ देता हूं. Section 8 clause 1 says a person convicted of an offense punishable shall be disqualified where the convicted person is sentenced to, मतलब जिस पे चार्ज है और जिसे सेंटेंस कर लिया गया है, किस केस में? फर्स्ट, only fine for a period of 6 years from the date of such conviction, imprisonment from the date of such conviction and shall continue to be disqualified for a further period of 6 years since his release. It means it relates to the disqualification period, कब तक वो disqualified रहेंगे अगर वो convicted हैं तो. Section 8 clause 2 reads as a person convicted for the contravention of any law providing for the prevention of hoarding or profiteering, any law relating to the adulteration of food or drugs, any provision of the Dowry Prohibition Act and sentenced to imprisonment for not less than 6 months shall be disqualified from the date of such conviction and shall continue to be disqualified for a further period of 6 years since his release. मतलब अगर किसी का नाम डाउरी एक्ट में आया है, he has been found guilty, or hoarding, profiteering, or adulteration with respect to food and beverages, then that person will be, and if that person is sentenced to say convicted, then that person will be disqualified from the date of conviction and will remain disqualified for another 6 years from the date of his release. So you can understand that's Representation of Peoples Act, Section 8, Clause 2. Section 8, Clause 3 reads as a person convicted of any offense and sentenced to imprisonment for not less than 2 years, other than any offense referred to in the subsection 1 or in the subsection 2, shall be disqualified from the date of such conviction and shall continue to be disqualified for a further period of 6 years since his release. मतलब इसके अलावा भी अगर कोई जेल गया है, कन्विक्टेड है, 2 साल कम से कम उसने जेल में काटा है, तो उस दिन से, जिस दिन से उसे जेल हुई थी, से वो डिस्क्वालिफाइड है और तब तक डिस्क्वालिफाइड है जब वो रिलीज हो जाता है, एंड शैल कंटिन्यू टू बी डिस्क्वालिफाइड फॉर अ फर्दर पीरियड ऑफ 6 years since his release. मतलब रिलीज के बाद भी 6 साल तक वो डिस्क्वालिफाइड ही रहेंगे. एंड यू सी दैट सेवरल पॉलिटिशियंस नाउ हैव बीन नैप्ड अंडर this. Let's have a look at Rule 4A of the Conduct of Election Rules 1961. This reads as each candidate must file an affidavit regarding cases, if any, in which the candidate has been accused of any offense punishable with imprisonment for 2 years or more. मतलब आपको एक affidavit देना पड़ेगा. It's a kind of, you can say, commitment, or it's a kind of you can say polished information, authentic information, and where you are not trying to dodge the authorities. It means it is forceful, correct information which involves your commitment. Clear? In which you have to write that if you have been convicted in a case for 2 years or more, you have to give information about it. That's what Rule 4A says. Cases for conviction of an offense other than any of the offenses mentioned in Section 8 of the Representation of Peoples Act 1951 and the sentence to imprisonment for 1 year or more. अगर आप सेक्शन 8 क्लॉज 1 क्लॉज 2 क्लॉज 3 इसके अंडर कहीं पर आए थे तो वो भी बताना पड़ेगा, एंड सेंटेंस टू इम्प्रिजनमेंट फॉर 1 ईयर और मोर, और अगर आपको सेंटेंस मिला था कोई 1 साल या उससे ज्यादा का तो वो भी बताना पड़ेगा. This is Rule 4 of Conduct of Election Rules. It means every candidate has to submit that affidavit. Let's have a look at the Election Commission. The Election Commission in March 2003 issued an order that candidates must file an additional affidavit stating Section 125A of the Representation of Peoples Act 1951, which prescribes penalty for withholding or providing incorrect information on Form 26, which amounts to imprisonment of up to 6 months or fine or both. This Form 26 is that form where you give information with respect to your criminal records. अगर आपने गलत इंफॉर्मेशन दिया या पूरा इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं दिया तो आप पे एक्शन हो सकता है अंडर सेक्शन 125A of Representation of Peoples Act 1951. Clear? If a lower court has convicted an individual, he cannot contest an election unless a higher court has overturned his conviction. समझ लो आपको जिसे कहते हैं जिला न्यायालय और डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट, और सपोज अ हाई कोर्ट हैज गिवन यू conviction. If it is high court, then Supreme Court must overturn it. If they are lower court, then the high court must overturn it. Only then you can fight elections. So look at this. There are the sections of Representation of People Act 8A, which talks about that in which case you would be debarred from fighting elections and for what period. Then there is Rule 4A, which says that you have to give information beforehand. And there is the Election Commission, which says that if you fail to give information properly, or if you withhold any information, or you try to misguide, then action will be taken against you. तो ये सब कुछ तो already है. Then why there is criminalization of politics? Significant Supreme Court rulings with respect to criminalization of politics. Let's have a look at them as well. The first one is Lily Thomas versus Union of India case that barred criminals in politics. The court held that Section 8(4) of the Representation of Peoples Act, which allows MPs and MLAs who are convicted while serving as members to continue in office till an appeal against such conviction is disposed of, is unconstitutional. पहले ये था कि अगर आप पे कोई कन्विक्शन चार्जेस और MP और MLA हो तो आप बस मिनिस्टर हो तो आप बस कंटिन्यू करोगे टिल कोई अपील ना हो उसके अगेंस्ट. But the Supreme Court in Lily Thomas versus Union of India held that this is unconstitutional. In 2015, Supreme Court directed Center to set up courts to fast-track cases against the legislators because the lawmakers cannot be the lawbreakers. Public Interest Foundation versus Union of India, 2018 case. It's a very recent case. The Public Interest Foundation is a body which files public interest litigations. Can filing of charge sheet lead to disqualification? This was the question that was addressed there. Currently, Section 8 of the Representation of Peoples Act only disqualifies persons when they are convicted of criminal charges. मतलब आप पे अगर कोई सिर्फ चार्ज शीट बनी है तो आप डिस्क्वालिफाइड नहीं हो, लेकिन अगर आप convicted हो, सेंटेंस मिल गया आपको, तब आप डिस्क्वालिफाइड हो. The bench cited respect for the separation of powers. But the bench said what? It said that there is separation of powers, so we cannot move into it. It's a legal issue. Let the parliament handle it. But how can the parliament handle it when the number of criminals in the parliament are growing day by day? Anyhow, so have a look at this. The court issued the following directions in this. And what were the directions? First, candidates must fill up forms containing the particulars, every particulars, including their criminal records. In said forms, criminal antecedents to be stated in bold. ऐसा नहीं कि छोटा सा लिख दिया कि हाँ एक बार एक मर्डर हो गया था हमसे. बहुत बोल्ड में लिखना पड़ेगा आपको that if you have any criminal antecedents जहाँ पे आपका conviction हो चुका है. Candidates must inform the concerned political party of pending criminal cases against them. Sometimes the leadership of the political party is not informed, and the candidates keep them also in some sort of disguise, or they do not inform them, and therefore the political parties genuinely they do not know that this candidate has some criminal antecedent. So court said that it is mandatory on the candidate before filing his nomination to inform the political party of which he is a member that what are his criminal records. Concerned political party to put up all such criminal antecedents of the candidates on party website ऐसा नहीं है कि पार्टी को आपने बता दिया कि हाँ हमसे ये पाप हुआ था पहले, एंड द पार्टी कीप्स इट अंडर कवर, says anyhow you are going to win the election for us, why to worry this time? But the party has to declare it before the people, and you know this is a kind of transparency related to the political parties in India. Wide publicity by both candidates and parties in press and media of criminal antecedents. Wide publicity means at least thrice after filing the nomination. Means, देखो कोर्ट क्या कह रहे हैं? कोर्ट पहले ये कह रहे हैं that every candidate must highlight their criminal records in bold. They must inform the political party. The political party must release that on their website, and then the candidate as well as the political party must advertise it at least 3 times before going into the election and after the nomination. Advertisement का मतलब जैसे नेता ऐसे हाथ जोड़कर खड़े रहते हैं और वहाँ पे लिखा रहता है उनके साथ में कि these are their achievements, तो वहाँ पे बोल्ड में ये भी लिखा होना चाहिए कि ये एक बार इन्होंने खून भी किया है. So something like that. Do you understand? This is what the court has said. But obviously the court said that it is separation of powers kind of situation, so we cannot go detail of it. Rather it left it to the goodwill of the parliament to enact a law in that direction. Clear? So let's have a look at another judgment, which is Rambabu Singh Thakur versus Sunil Arora. It's 2020 judgment, very recent. In the case, the court delivered a judgment in the contempt petition arising out of the electoral disqualification case. Public Interest Foundation, वही foundation था जिन्होंने फाइल किया था. The bench reiterated the court's 2018 directions and directed the election commission to report to the Supreme Court on any non-compliance by the political parties. What are the directions? Every candidate must give their criminal records, place their criminal records before the filing the application, should highlight it in bold, inform the political party should advertise, and political party should put it on the website, plus the candidate and the political party should advertise it at least thrice after filing the nomination or before the elections. Clear? These are the significant Supreme Court rulings. Let's have a look at what are the reasons, what are the causes for the criminalization of politics. First, emergence of vote bank politics. इससे पहले तो ये सारा fact था, यहाँ पर हम देख सकते हैं why criminalization in politics have occurred. First is emergence of vote bank politics. And you see, vote bank politics simply means that a particular community is treated as a homogeneous unit and as a single vote. Or you can say that all of them are likely to vote in a single fashion. Clear? So this is vote bank. जैसे जैसे ये vote bank politics आया है with respect to X community vote bank, Y community vote bank or Z community vote bank, you will see that the tendency of criminalization of politics have increased. It means use of money power and use of muscle power has grown. Corruption in politics. Obviously, when you are doing corruption, you would need the goons. And if you protect the goons will also have political aspirations and they would like to come into the system. And if you do not give them adequate channels, वो तो आपका भांडा फोड़ सकते हैं. इसलिए what happens is that when there is corruption in politics or the ethos of the politics go down, then you will see that criminalization or criminal tendencies grow in politics. Loopholes in the functioning of the election commission. The election commission has failed on major occasions with respect to curbing criminalization in politics. If that would have been the case, why the number of or the proportion of winners in the parliament who have a criminal background is growing from 2009 to 2019? 10 साल में इतना growth कैसे हुआ? Who is responsible? The election commission is first, it is not making the nomination papers in such a manner that it closes all doors for the criminals into the legislatures. Plus, it is also not implementing the Supreme Court guidelines. It is not trying, I'm not saying that it is not trying, it's trying its best, but effective implementation is a problem. Denial of justice and rule of law. When there is denial of justice and rule of law, people often favor a local criminal, feeling that he may go into the parliament and deliver some good to them, especially with the emergence of vote bank politics, communal politics, caste politics, etc. Politician, bureaucrat, unholy nexus. Unholy nexus means the politicians and the bureaucrats, you would see that they are hand in glove in corruption, in criminal activities often, and therefore there is a quid pro quo between them, which is causing the emergence and the sustained maintenance of criminality in politics. Caste and communal politics, obviously. Illiteracy and material impoverishment. When people are illiterate and they are materially impoverished, you can understand that they find it hard to distinguish between that who is a suitable candidate and who is not, mostly when people are not aware of his criminal antecedents. And many times you would see that the political parties also favor a person who can win them the seat rather than how the person is. It means winnability is given a kind of preference over credibility. Parties compromising with election ethics, that's what I just told. Some sections of the people view them as problem solvers. कि बस अब भैया जी जीत कर आ गए हैं हमारे, वो सारा प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर देंगे, ये इस बात से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि भैया जी के ऊपर खून, रेप सारे आरोप हैं. Do you understand that? So some sections of the people view it as a kind of, view at them as a kind of problem solvers. कि ये सारे problems solve कर सकते हैं. They look at them like a panacea for all problems. Also one thing that they get good support from such people during the campaign program. Clear? और लोग तरह तरह की बातें भी करते हैं. लोग ये भी कहते हैं कि हाँ ऐसा है, हो गया, कोई बात नहीं, होता रहता है, और तरह तरह की बातें होती हैं. Anyhow, impacts of criminalization of politics. होता क्या है? If criminals enter into the parliament, it means lawmakers become lawbreakers, or lawbreakers rather become lawmakers. If that happens, what is the impact? First, poor governance. Obviously, they would not be focusing on governance, rather they are criminals inherently or have been criminals at some point of time in their life. And if they have not reformed themselves, obviously their sole target would be their selfish interest, often by taking or adopting illegal paths. And therefore good governance will take a hit. People-centric governance or the goals of development, people's participation, all of this would go into the drain. Lawbreakers become lawmakers. Poor performance of the parliament. Obviously, if there are criminals into the parliament, you can understand the parliament will not be able to deliberate in a constructive fashion. And they will always block such laws which go against their vested interests. And if that is the case, you can understand that what would be left of the parliament will not be performing then. Increase in corruption and money laundering, because these are the channels through which they have funded their elections. So they would try to encourage these kind of avenues so as to fund their next election. तैयारी तो तभी से शुरू हो जाएगी. Demotivates genuine political aspirants. It means if somebody has worked honestly in a political party, but the political party has given the ticket to the person with a criminal record because that person can win the election because he belongs to a certain caste or a community or something like that, and caste-based politics, communal politics, vote bank politics. Due to all these factors, he has been given preference over this hard-working, honest political worker who has dedicated his blood and sweat for the growth of the political party. So it demotivates him, and obviously it will take away the good brains, the best brains away from politics. See, that country will be the best country in the world where the most sharpest brains go into politics, because they are the leaders. They show us the way. Do you understand that? Encourages, or look at this, brings money and muscle power into the politics. That's self-understood. Encourages extremism like left-wing extremism. Obviously, we know that if people get demotivated because of poor governance, then they may get attracted to Maoist ideologies or something like that. Destroys international image of India. लोग हंसेंगे बाहर से कि देखो ये पार्लियामेंट में जितने बैठे हैं, कोई रेपिस्ट है, कोई मर्डरर है, कोई स्मगलर था, कोई एक्सटॉर्शनिस्ट था. So if the number of criminals increase in the legislatures, it speaks or it reflects very wrongly of India's political image. So India's image take a hit. Thoughts, the idea of welfare state. Obviously, when there is no good governance, there will not be social justice. If there is no social justice, there will be no economic justice. And without social and economic justice, political injustice तो हो ही चुका है. Criminals को जब elect कर दिया, you can understand the entire idea of welfare state will be destroyed. Clear? Let's have a look at the challenges related to criminalization of politics. First, limited power of the election commission. We must give election commission more teeth to act against the criminals or candidates with criminal antecedents, and more stringent kind of punishments must be inflicted on them from the election commission. Ambiguity around the term criminalization creates different interpretation by different political parties, because some political parties consider this activity as not a criminal activity, whereas other political parties consider that as a criminal activity. So first need is the criminalization. The meaning of the word criminalization in politics or criminalization must be defined in an unambiguous term, in an objective manner that creates no confusion. And where it can be done? Obviously through a law in the echelons of the Parliament of India. But you know that the Parliament has not shown such exigency for this kind of any legislative effort. Winnability versus credibility, that I've already explained to you. Overburdened judiciary. When the judiciary is overburdened, obviously even if the law members who are having criminal records or there is a fresh criminal charge, the charge sheet is produced against them and they are convicted, the judicial process moves with the speed of a snail, further encouraging them to emasculate more power in the meantime. So fast track courts which delivers justice in an expeditious manner and in an exigent state, that is necessary for the success of any efforts to curb criminals from entering into politics. Clear? What is the way forward? The way forward is the Election Commission of India should have the power to audit the financial accounts of political parties. क्योंकि मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग और टेरर फाइनेंसिंग से भी हो सकता है किसी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को पैसा आ रहा हो, और पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज फाइनेंसेस शुड बी ब्रॉट अंडर द राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन एक्ट. But you know that the political parties have shown a great kind of reluctance to come under the ambit of the Right to Information Act. Law Commission report said that the disqualification at the stage of charging with power safeguards to prevent misuse has significant potential in curbing the spread of criminalization of politics. It means that disqualification at the stage of charging with proper safeguards to prevent misuse. It means जैसे किसी पे criminal charges आप वो कर रहे हो, impose कर रहे हो, वहाँ पे कुछ safeguards होने चाहिए so that this power should not be misused. But this charging should itself be, if substantial, considered as a criminal activity or in the domain of criminalization of politics, and that can help in curbing the entry of criminals into politics. Judicial system needs to be overhauled drastically to ensure that the justice is dispensed in an expeditious manner in all cases. Perception of the people, viewing them as lawmakers, will slowly change their perception of what they want from their representatives. So people's perception should change with respect to what they are actually seeking from the lawmakers. For that you need to develop societal ethics into you can understand overall scheme of the society. Political parties need to have stronger inner party democracy, because if there is no inner party democracy, फिर वहाँ पे टिकट खरीदने वाले लोग होंगे और टिकट वही खरीदेंगे जिनके पास पैसा होगा. एंड यू नो बहुत सारा पैसा जो है वो क्रिमिनल एक्टिविटीज से भी आ सकता है, और थ्रू मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, टेरर फाइनेंसिंग, एक्सटॉर्शन, स्मगलिंग, ट्रैफिकिंग, ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग, एनीथिंग. So political parties need to have a greater, stronger inner party democracy / transparency. On their political website, they must highlight that which are the sources from where they are getting the money. This is the way forward. Let's have a look at the question. Criminalization of political system undermines the ethos of the Indian constitution and defeats the promise of a people-centric good governance system analyzed. तो इसमें करना क्या है? सबसे पहले you need to define what do we mean by criminalization of politics. Then you need to highlight that what are the causes for the prevalence of criminalization in politics or reasons for criminalization of politics in India. The different sections, say for example the 4A or the section 8 of representation of peoples, and how do they say, just 2 lines, 3 lines of it, not much detailed of it, that we saw in the class because we wanted to have a text for a reference. Clear? Then what needs to be done? The Supreme Court's guidelines and how they need to be followed, and the challenges that are ahead. Finally, you conclude that what are the disadvantages if criminals go into the echelons of law-making bodies? What are the negative impacts on society and how it distorts the dream of the welfare state? Clear? ऐसा कह के आप इस आंसर को क्लोज कर सकते हैं. Let's move to the next topic, and this is Fit India campaign. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, he has given a clarion call that we must bring fitness as a part of our life. See, India once was a country of fit people, but today that cannot be said so. Today we have largest number of lifestyle related diseases in the entire world. One more thing you see, if you look at the successful people in every arena of life, you will find one common thing. They are all extremely fit. Fitness has 2 manifestations, the physical fitness and the mental fitness. Both these kinds of fitness is imperative for a healthy, successful, happy life. Do you understand this? So let's have a look at this Fit India campaign, which promotes the culture of fitness in country. Success is related to fitness. Success stories of all of our icons from any field of life have a common thread. Most of them are fit, have a focus on fitness and are fond of fitness, said the Prime Minister in his speech when he was talking about the Fit India movement or the Fit India campaign. Let us have a look at what is this Fit India campaign. Fit India movement will be a very interesting campaign for everyone. It means it is a campaign which looks for the improvement in the health of everyone or fitness of everyone. Children, the elderly and the adults, everyone is included in it. Fit India movement is a campaign to change the lifestyle of the people of India and to make them more fit or bring fitness as a part of their daily routine. The Fit India movement will be a multi-ministry effort. It means it is not a single ministry effort, but it is a joint collaboration by a number of ministries. And what are the ministries? The Ministry of Sports, HRD, Panchayati Raj, Rural Development Ministry, aimed at bringing about behavioral change and introducing basic fitness practices. तो आप देख सकते हो स्पोर्ट्स के थ्रू, HRD के थ्रू, अब तो वो एजुकेशन मिनिस्ट्री होने वाला है एनी हाउ, द पंचायती राज मिनिस्ट्री एंड रूरल डेवलपमेंट मिनिस्ट्री, ऑल ऑफ देम विल वर्क इन कोलैबोरेशन एंड विल इंड्यूस द कल्चर ऑफ फिटनेस अमंग ऑल. फिटनेस को एक वैल्यू बना दिया जाएगा आपके लाइफ का. लाइक से फॉर एग्जांपल, मनी इज अ वैल्यू, power is a value, position is a value, everyone is chasing them. Fitness should also be a value. In fact, it is a better value. You might have heard this, that if wealth is lost, nothing is lost. If health is lost, something is lost. If character is lost, everything is lost. So you know that to build a good character, you need good health. And to be healthy, you have to have a fit lifestyle. A special focus on the campaign will be on rural India, where the basic, say, infrastructural facilities are lacking. For example, think of sporting facilities. They are mostly absent in the rural areas. Clear? So the focus would be on rural areas. तो क्या है ये campaign? First, it will involve all people from all age groups. Multi-ministry effort. Which are the ministry? Sports, HRD/education, Panchayati Raj, rural development, and special focus on rural areas which lack infrastructure. Let's have a look at some alarming facts with respect to India. You see, Indians shy away from physical activity. मतलब एक ज़माना था जब बाज़ार जाया करते थे और बाज़ार से सब्जियां लाया करते थे, बट अब तो पड़ोस में दूध लेने जाते हैं तो भी कार लेकर या बाइक लेकर. It means they shy away from fitness. एक कमरे से दूसरे को बुलाना है तो फोन कर लेते हैं क्योंकि अब तो फ्री है सब कुछ. 54% of Indians are physically inactive. 54%. It means 2 में से 1 से भी ज्यादा, मतलब कोई भी नहीं है एक तरीके से अगर आप देखो तो. 54%. It means more than half of the Indians are physically inactive. They do nothing in their life which keeps them active. Less than 10% engage in recreational physical activity. Recreational physical activity, say dancing, yoga, music, sports, etc., which are fun thing to do. 10%, less than 10% means 90% people. Less than 10 मतलब 90 से भी ज़्यादा है. तो आप समझ सकते हो that many part of Indians or that many proportion of Indians, they do not play a sport. They do not do jogging. They do not do some dance moves. They do not practice yoga. They do not do anything that brings physical engagement. Clear? Burdened with, होना ही था. देखो क्या हुआ है. Obesity, 13.5 crores. Soon we will beat USA in this. Diabetes, 7.2 crores, highest. Thyroid disorders, 4.2 crores, one of the highest. Hypertension, 8 crore, highest. Cardiovascular diseases, 5.5 crores. मतलब इतने सारे लोग जो हैं वो अनफिट हैं इंडिया में. और क्यों हैं? अपनी लाइफस्टाइल की वजह से, कि हाउ दे आर स्पेंडिंग देयर लाइफ. World Health Organization statistics say that 1 in 4 adults globally is not active enough, while more than 80% of the world's adolescent population is insufficiently physically active. Obviously, technology, say for example, movement of vehicles and all those kind of things have given you some advantage. Plus the junk food that we eat. Do you know that the oil that is contained in the junk food, it remains in our body for weeks, for years even. If we keep on consuming them, the beverages, the soft drinks, the soda that everyone drinks, you can understand they are disastrous for health. I'm not taking names of any company, by the way, because I'm not endorsing any, nor am I against any. According to the Indian Council of Medical Research, the estimated proportion of all deaths due to non-communicable diseases, it means lifestyle related diseases, say diabetes, hypertension, or cardiovascular, or thyroid, or obesity, has increased from 37.09% in 1990 to 61.8% in 2016. So look at the proportion of increase in the non-communicable diseases or the lifestyle diseases. As per the National Family Health Survey 2015-16, this was the last survey, 11% of women, 1 in 10, and 15% of men, 1 in 7, of 15 to 49 years are hypertensive. It means there is a lot of pressure going on their brain. In India, the Global Diseases Burden 2015 ranks chronic kidney disease as the 8th leading cause of death, which is often created due to tension and stress emerging out of bad lifestyle. So why do we need Fit India campaign? अब इससे ज़्यादा बोलने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, आप हाल देख लो. We have all become couch potatoes. हम जाते हैं, बिल्कुल काउच पे बैठ जाते हैं. Then you have your web series or you have your other engagements and you just eat, sleep and you just waste your time without engaging your body in some physical activity. ऐसा 1 साल, 2 साल, 10 साल, 15 साल तो चल सकता है. After that, surely there will be diminishing returns. You will face some sort of heart attack kind of problems, cardiovascular problems, there would be hypertension, diabetes, and you see that's why diabetes have become so common now. Everyone, like you go to every family, you will find some or the other person suffering from diabetes. That's so true. Now, let's have a look at benefits of the Fit India campaign. The first one is highlights the need for physical fitness. Obviously, physical fitness should be a part of our life. It should be a culture of our life, right? It should not be some cherished goal that we are trying to achieve, but it should become a part of our lifestyle. So, it highlights the need of physical fitness. इससे पहले तो सिर्फ यही बोला जाता है कि कितना होशियार है, कोई ये नहीं बोलता देखो कितना fit है. Very few people call or praise someone on the basis of his or her fitness. Clear? That thing should come into picture. Encourages to consume healthy food, especially children under the age of 14 years. You will see they are the largest consumers of junk food in the world. Do you know that? Several food chains, I don't want to name any, but multinational food chains selling junk food, pizzas and burgers and all of that, the largest consumers are the children under 14. And in fact, the parents encourage it. That if you want to go to an outing, वो लेकर जाते हैं कि चलो आज पिज्जा खिला कर लाते हैं. Because maybe they don't want to cook or something like that. Fosters healthy lifestyle. Encourages or gives an impetus to it. Makes India a sports playing nation. We are a sport loving nation. क्रिकेट मैच आता है पूरी दुनिया रुक जाती है. फुटबॉल हो रहा है या कोई भी हॉकी का मैच हो रहा है, सब बैठकर देखते हैं. आईपीएल सबने एंजॉय किया है, बट कितने लोग जाकर बाहर एक बॉल भी खेलने की कोशिश की? इट मीन्स वी आर अ स्पोर्ट लविंग नेशन. सो फ्रॉम अ स्पोर्ट लविंग नेशन वी मस्ट बिकम अ स्पोर्ट प्लेइंग नेशन. क्लियर? And sports, let me tell you, along with yoga, are the two important things. It means sports and yoga are two important things that can give you instant fitness within a short period of time. No other thing can give you such fitness. Like if you go to a gym and you release your, say for example, you lift all the loads and you do all the exercises. Yet sports can give you a better vibe because it engages your mind as well. Similarly, dancing, it can do the same effect. Yoga can do the same effect. Provides an impetus to India's traditional art forms like martial arts. Malkham, which is very popular in Madhya Pradesh and in Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh also. You will find that it has now become an international sports. Indian martial arts like Kalariyapattu from Kerala, it is considered as world's first martial arts. So you see, or the oldest martial art, so you see that such kind of Indian martial arts get promotion due to this Fit India campaign. Drives the youth away from extremist activities. Obviously, if you engage the rural youth in the red corridor, in sporting activities, you are keeping them away from the extremist ideologies. Clear? And making them fit. Builds a healthy labor force for future. Obviously, fit people can work for longer duration with greater concentration and thus can produce better results. Improves the quality of life and the ease of living. Suppose you are attaining weight, a lot of weight, then you will find it difficult to move. मतलब जूते का लेस भी नहीं बांधा जा रहा आपसे. So you can understand, if that is the situation, then you are not living a healthy lifestyle. Clear? So there is ease of living that gets distorted, and it all starts with our lifestyle. What we eat, how many hours we sleep. 8 hours of sound sleep is necessary. Are we doing it? Do you understand that? How much are we disengaging ourselves from our physical or mentally engaging activities so that we are giving the relaxation to the body and playing a sport, learning a skill, doing some physical activity, yoga, etc. Anything helps in finding new sporting talents, because under the Fit India campaign there are Fit India games which are conducted. School levels पे भी conduct हो रहे हैं ये games, and when these games are conducted, you know that we may get a new Virat Kohli or a new Smriti Mandhana or someone like that. It means we can get new fresh talents from these sporting events. Ensures 360-degree development in children. देखो 360 degree development मतलब physical development, intellectual development, psychological development, and this can happen only when the person is fit. Only a fit person can have better learning skills, a fit person can have better application skills, and a fit person would be a happier person. Because if your body is unfit, then kuch bhi kar lo, whatever material assets you attain or whatever kind of money or wealth or power or prestige you accumulate, all are meaningless. You will remain unhealthy because hypertension, diabetes, you will have anger as an important component of your nature. These all things will never fade away. And if these things continue with you, you cannot have the respect from others in the society, and definitely then you will not be a happy person anymore. What are the challenges with respect to implementation of the Fit India program? First is the infrastructural deficit, especially in the rural area. You do not have the sporting facilities, for example, to conduct regular sporting events. That's the first problem. Governance deficit. In many areas you see that we have so many campaigns like this, but when it comes to implementation of these campaigns, we see there is a severe lacuna in their implementation because of governance deficit, because the administrators are not enthusiastic about it. Let's be very straightforward. And if that is not the case, if the administrators are not enthusiastic about it, then this Fit India campaign will also become one another campaign for promoting fitness, which never converted or transformed itself into any substantial gains. Institutional deficit. एक sporting institution है जैसे कि Sports Authority of India, but when you look at states, especially look at the eastern states, the southern states have done some better, but the western states and the eastern states, northwestern states and eastern states, you will see that there is a huge gap. In states like Haryana or states like Rajasthan, you have good facilities, good institutions that have come up, whereas states like Bengal, Bihar, Assam, Odisha, you will find that these states have not still developed good institutions that promote a healthy lifestyle, especially through sporting activities. Psychological deficit. Obviously, when you are not fit, like say for example, if you are becoming obese, it can hurt your confidence, and therefore when you become fit, you feel more confident. So there is a kind of psychological advantage to it. So there is a psychological deficit also in that aspect. Further, how do schools look at it? Most of the schools are not, they do not encourage the sporting activity. There are only few schools which encourage regular sporting activities. बस नाम के लिए एक sports day organize कर देते हैं, साल में 3 दिन का होता है, उसमें भी अब स्पोर्ट्स क्या ही होता है, बाकी अगर उसमें बारिश वारिश हो जाए तो पढ़ाई हो जाती है उल्टा. So the point is that unless we change our thinking, then or we'll change our psychology towards a fit lifestyle. How many schools, how many families encourage sports? How many families encourage, say, dance? Or how many families encourage yoga? Like if somebody says that I want to pick up dance as my profession, or if someone says that I want to pick sports as my profession or yoga as my profession, how many families give encouragement? Maybe minuscule, they can be numbered. Do you understand this? It means there is a severe psychological deficit in the Indian society vis-a-vis a fit lifestyle. Financial deficit, obviously. To implement a program of such great proportion, you need to have good financial support. But from where the money will come? That's a big challenge. And here you can think of the corporates. The corporates can come into the picture. They can build social responsibility through social responsibility. And if you give tax rebates to them, then they can definitely make this program a success. And there are several corporates who are now engaging in promoting sporting talent. And when sporting talent is promoted, obviously it creates a culture of fitness. Curriculum deficit. When you look at the, like say, go to the elementary level, and in the elementary level you will find that elementary level of education I'm talking about, you will find that the curriculum is not designed in a proper fashion wherein adequate importance has also been attached to health or fitness. It's all about mental fitness, mental agility, mental capacity. That is what is focused in the curriculum of the schools and colleges. How many colleges, how many engineering colleges have a sporting ground? How many medical colleges have cultural activities? How many science colleges, art colleges have such kind of sporting facilities? Or if they have, how serious are the management in implementing these facilities? What is the quality of these facilities? If the facilities are also having good quality, how many students are engaging themselves? What is their proportion with respect to the total students? What kind of food they are eating? What kind of outlets are there? What kind of lifestyle are they following? If this continues in an unabated fashion, mark my words that in 10 to 15 years time, India would be totally unfit. The children who are growing now, they are being fed on, say, the junk food as they reach or cross their 30s. Definitely, their body will not answer their will. Do you understand that? And that will hurt India's labor potential. Let's have a look at the question. A healthy lifestyle is imperative for good health and economic empowerment. In the context of the above statement, discuss the significance of Fit India campaign. तो इसमें सबसे पहले आप लिखेंगे what are the highlights of the Fit India campaign. You can make a box, or you can make a chart, or you can make a simple block, kind of simple diagram where you can highlight that why India needs the Fit India campaign. Then the important things, it covers everyone, multi-ministry approach and all of that, the highlights of the Fit India campaign and special focus on rural areas. Then what are the challenges in the path of Fit India campaign, and what are the benefits of the Fit India campaign. Clear? And you should conclude with this, that the quotation as given to us by the Honorable Prime Minister, you can just use that quotation, that if you look at every field, or in every field, if you look at successful people, you'll find one common thing. All of them are fit, they maintain their fitness, and they're fond of fitness. Be it anything, sports, movies, politics, anywhere, kahin bhi dekh lo. The most successful people are the fittest people. Let's move to the next topic, which is defense indigenization. There are two terms, indigenization and indigenization. Indigenization is when you indigenously, or you produce the defense systems, the weaponry and the defense assets on your own without any external help. That is indigenization. Whereas indigenization means covering all equipments, to converting all equipments to meet your requirement. It means you design your military systems, you design your weaponry, you design your defense architecture in order to suit your needs, Indian needs. So there are two terms, defense indigenization and defense indigenization. So let's have a look at them. Defense indigenization means building defense related systems, weapons or parts thereof in the country. Here too we have graduated from assembling knockdown kits to building from scratch. Indigenization is not you import few things and then you assemble it in the country. That is not indigenization. Indigenization is you start from scratch, मतलब नट से लेकर बोल्ट तक सब कुछ आपके यहाँ बन रहा है. That is indigenization. And you know, defense indigenization has become very important because it is mentioned in your syllabus first, and second, we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Clear? So Atmanirbharta in defense is a prerequisite for strategic advantage. Indigenization means converting all equipment, it means the systems, the weapons or the parts, to meet our military needs. In this, there has been considerable achievement as proven in 1971 war and Kargil Operation Vijay. There, because of you can understand, if the weapons are not indigenized, then they do not give the performance that we desire from them. Clear? So indigenization means सब कुछ आपके यहाँ बन रहा है. Indigenization means India को जो चाहिए वैसे बन रहा है. Do you understand that? Now, why do we need defense indigenization? First is obviously it gives us independence. It makes us self-reliant, but it also helps us in saving money because India is one of the largest importers of weapons. India spends a lot on defense. India's defense budget is huge, and much part of the defense budget goes in importing weapons. Further, we can export the weapons to especially the underdeveloped countries, and we can earn foreign exchange. So from spending for defense equipments, we can sell the defense equipments to get forex reserves or augment our forex reserves. So let's have a look at the advantages of indigenization or defense indigenization. First, fiscal improvement. India, you see, the second largest importer of arms in the world. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is the largest importer. अगर हम इंडिजनाइजेशन कर लें तो हमारे इंपोर्ट्स कम हो जाएंगे. अगर हमारे इंपोर्ट्स कम होंगे तो हमारा बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड भी अच्छा होगा. ओवरऑल आवर BOP situation will improve. Clear? The current account situation will improve. The BOP situation will improve. Second, export income. India can sell the indigenously built weapons, etc., to countries, especially the underdeveloped countries who cannot afford, or the poor countries, the high priced defense weapons of countries like Russia or USA or Israel. India can become a good alternative. India can earn money from that way. Forex exchange. Economic growth, it will also boost GDP. If you look at American GDP, you will see a great push to the American GDP comes from the American defense sector. Same is the case with Israel, same is the case with Russia, same is the case with France. अभी फ्रांस ने राफेल हमको बेचा है तो सोचो उनको कितना ज़्यादा फायदा हुआ होगा उनकी GDP में. So India can also earn that because Rafale is imported, right? And imports are not they are not entertained, or they are not included in your GDP. Clear? Exports are included in your GDP. Security measures. Indigenization in defense is critical to national security also, because if we focus on indigenization of defense, obviously we'll focus on Indianization next, and Indianization can improve our national security capacity. Strategic independence. Ab dekho, we know that USA is our friend, Israel is our friend, Russia is our friend, but you never know what happens in the global politics, how things take shape in the future. Imagine a situation where our relations are not so good and we are in a state of war. Because of our dependence in case of weaponry, we lose our strategic independence. Maybe they will use their weapons as a form to leverage something from us. Plus, आपको पता है कि जब US और इराक का वॉर हुआ था, then Iraq purchased a lot of weapons from US which used GPS data. US military changed the GPS data and Iraqi missiles misfired. And because of this, Iraq experienced heavy losses in the war against US. So if we do not have indigenization, we will also be dependent on the other countries. So it will not give us strategic independence. Next, employment generation. Obviously, indigenization in the defense sector, like in the space sector, defense will also become a job generator, defense sector, and it will create all kinds of job. You can say mid-level jobs, high-paid jobs, technical jobs, non-technical jobs, all kind of jobs. Clear? So if we are talking about increase in GDP, that should also come with the creation of employment. And you can relate this to Fit India campaign, that if labor is fit, it can work for longer hours with higher concentration, which is necessary in sectors like defense and space. So try to link all the topics in this way. Societal and psychological impact. Obviously, जब आपको ये पता लगता है कि ये weapon हमारे यहाँ बना है, like say for example, when you look at something like the Tejas light combat aircraft, indigenously built, or when you look at any missile, or when you look at any tank which is indigenously built, submarine, something like that, it creates a lot of confidence in the people. and it has a societal impact. As a society, we feel confident. It has a psychological impact. Keep this in mind. In situations of war, war is first won or lost in the mind. Then it is won or lost in the battlefield. And many a times, when you do not have confidence on your weapons, you are already on the wrong side. It means the propensity to lose the war in the mind grows exorbitantly. Clear? So in this case, if we have good capabilities in defense manufacturing, indigenous defense production, then it will create a kind of confidence in all of us which will brush off in the society, and it will have a psychologically positive impact. It will also push the morale of the security forces up, because they will have this knowledge that the people have faith in us because we have faith in the defense systems or the weapons or the parts thereof. Clear? तो क्या क्या फायदे हो सकते हैं? Economic advantage, strategic advantage, and psychological, social advantage. You can club them all under these three categories. Government initiatives for defense indigenization. Let's have a look at that. Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020, new Defense Acquisition Procedure incorporates several measures to boost domestic defense industry and make in India. Produces simplified procedures simplified to reduce time delays and enhance ease of doing business. ये तो हो चुका है, ये पुरानी चीजें हैं. Then you have the new FDI policy, some new provisions like new category buy global manufacture in India, done to encourage foreign original equipment manufacture to set up manufacturing maintenance entities through its subsidiary in India while enabling requisite protections to domestic industry. In simple words, if I have to say that FDI has been encouraged now, and you would see that the cap on FDI has also increased. Defense is a critical sector, by the way, you need to keep in mind. So acquisition procedure has been launched, FDI policy has been rolled out for defense. But जो आपके लिए important है वो है this. Look at this, the defense industrial corridors. The defense ministry has already started working on two defense industrial corridors. It means along these corridors there would be creation of defense industries, and obviously it would have multiplier effects, spillover effects to other sectors of the economy. I'm not negating that, but the focus area would be defense. Clear? And one of them would be in Tamil Nadu, the other one would be in Uttar Pradesh. So the north and south of the country are covered through that defense corridor. Clear? तो ये आप एक चीज ध्यान में रखो. eBiz portal. The portal will provide a one-stop shop for providing government to business G2B services to investors and business communities in India and help in reducing the delays and complexities in obtaining information and services. It's a kind of portal which facilitates the interaction by simplifying the interface and quick procurement. Mission Rakshagyan Shakti, with the objective of creating greater intellectual property in defense production ecosystem, because you know that defense production requires a lot of research, and research requires a lot of funds, and if you gain something substantial through the research, you would like to protect that through strong IPR laws. And Mission Rakshagyan Shakti means it protects your gyan. Do you understand that? In order to encourage you for further engagement in defense production. Artificial intelligence in defense, that has also been done. Innovation for defense excellence. The objective of IDEX is to bring startups to innovate development technology and solve problem related to defense and aerospace. तो ये सारी चीज़ें तो पुरानी हैं, चाहे वो FDI पॉलिसी हो, जो डिफेंस कॉरिडोर्स हैं वो अभी बन रहे हैं, तो दे आर इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर यू. द eBiz पोर्टल, मिशन रक्षा ज्ञान शक्ति, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, IDEX. I know you are aware about most of them, so that's why I'm not going into the details of it, because you might have read this during your preliminary preparation. But what is important is this: the draft defense production and export promotion policy 2020. This is a draft. Now, what is this draft? It has 5 important objectives. Look at this. To achieve a turnover of rupees 1,75,000 crores, which roughly translates to 25 billion US dollars, including export of rupees 35,000 crores, roughly translating into 5 billion US dollars in aerospace and defense goods and services by 2025. Remember, we are also aiming to become a $5 trillion economy. It cannot happen unless you have high quality, high fetching exports. ये आप सिर्फ प्राइमरी प्रोडक्ट्स बेचकर या सर्विस बेचकर आप 5 ट्रिलियन पे तो नहीं जा सकते. You have to reinvigorate, revamp and re-energize your manufacturing, and in manufacturing, defense manufacturing is key. To develop a dynamic, robust and competitive defense industry. Dynamic means which can change itself with respect to the demands of time. Robust means highly performing and it is very resilient. Competitive means it shows 2 kinds of competitiveness: price competitiveness and quality competitiveness. Defense industry, including aerospace and naval shipbuilding, because they are also part of the defense ecosystem, to cater to the needs of the armed forces with quality products. To reduce dependence on imports and take forward Make in India initiatives through domestic design and development. तो एक तो टारगेट सेट कर दिया है, दूसरा ये कहा गया है कि डिफेंस इकोसिस्टम हम कैसा बनाना चाहते हैं, तीसरा ये कि इंपोर्ट्स हम कम करेंगे, मेक इन इंडिया पे ज़्यादा फोकस होगा. टू प्रमोट एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ डिफेंस प्रोडक्ट्स एंड बिकम पार्ट ऑफ द ग्लोबल डिफेंस वैल्यू चेन्स. बिकॉज यू सी दैट मेनी टाइम्स you will see that defense product exporting countries, they form a kind of consortium in order to control the global prices, one hand. Second is that they take the advantages of the interconnectedness. Like say for example, you're making ammunitions, but just the barrel you are importing it from a country, and that country is then say for example as a quid pro quo importing something from you. So in that case, India will become a part of the global defense value chain system. To create an environment that encourages R&D, and you can relate to this the mission Roychowdhary Shakti, rewards innovation, creates Indian IP ownership and promotes a robust and self-reliant defense industry. देखो 5 ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं ड्राफ्ट पॉलिसी के. क्या है? पहला तो टारगेट है, एक कैसे अचीव करना है, प्रोडक्शन से भी, डोमेस्टिक और एक्सपोर्ट से भी. दूसरा डायनामिक, robust and competitive defense ecosystem including aerospace and shipbuilding. Third, reduce dependence on imports, encourage Make in India with respect to defense. Fourth, become a part of the global value chain system with respect to defense export. And fifth is to encourage and protect the IP or intellectual properties with respect to defense, to give an impetus to defense research. These are the 5 objectives of the draft defense production and export promotion policy. नाम से ही समझ में आ जाता है, डिफेंस प्रोडक्शन एंड एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन. क्या क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं डिफेंस इंडिजिनाइजेशन के? स्ट्रेटेजिक एडवांटेजेस, इकोनॉमिक एडवांटेजेस एंड साइकोलॉजिकल advantages. Let's have a look at the policy. Brings out multiple strategies under the following focus areas. These are the focus areas. Procurement reforms, because many times what has happened is that development and procurement go hand in hand, and therefore less focus goes towards development and more focus towards procurement, because defense needs are always pressing needs. That's why you need quick results. So procurement reforms must be done. Indigenization and support of MSME startups so that they can make the small component parts so that the big industries can focus on designing and innovation and new products. Optimize resource allocation, resources, human resources, money, etc. Investment promotion, FDI and ease of doing business, allowing FDI, foreign parties or corporate players in defense production. In USA, Israel, even in China, You will see private parties also forming defense companies. But India में अभी तक वो उतना ज़्यादा successful नहीं हुआ है. Innovation and R&D. The PSUs and the OFB मतलब Ordnance Factory Boards. ये जो ordnance factories हैं, you will find many ordnance factories at many places. Some are in Bengal, some in MP, some are elsewhere also. You'll find one thing, that these ordnance factories have become repair shops. Rather, these ordnance factories should also have avenues that encourage production rather than just repairing. Quality assurance and testing infrastructure. Quality assurance means the weapons that you are creating, they must be of international standards, and that can be, you can be sure of it by testing it properly. But for testing you need testing infrastructure, because suppose if you are testing a heavy gun, or say for example a missile, how can you do that if you do not have the infrastructure for it? Launching infrastructure, tracking infrastructure, data infrastructure, review infrastructure, all those kind of infrastructure. Export promotion, obviously to gain financial advantages and boost GDP. Clear? So these are the areas, focus areas for the draft defense production and export promotion policies. Clear? What are the challenges regarding the defense production in India? First, archaic model of defense production. बहुत पुराना मॉडल है अभी भी जो डिफेंस प्रोडक्शन में implement हो रहा है. Public enterprises, they take the lead, and public sector enterprises, they create the they take the lead with respect to defense production. But obviously they have not done substantial, they have not gained substantial progress. Gross inefficiency in the PSUs and the ordnance factory, I've already talked about it. Inefficiency of DRDO, let's accept it. DRDO has some important achievements in its hat, but DRDO has not performed like ISRO. जैसे ISRO ने perform किया है, वैसा अगर DRDO perform करना शुरू कर दे, then you will see that we will be in a position where we would be in a good state with respect to defense indigenization and Indianization. Dispute settlement body. Often you see that defense production, especially by private parties, it requires procurement, they are big deals, and there are often disputes. So dispute settlement body, quick, swift dispute settlement body encourages the investors. USA has this, like say for example in USA the procurement agency DARPA has a permanent arbitration committee which looks after all the procurement. Separation of procurement from indigenization, because that has been given to the same entity often, and they focus more on procurement and less on indigenization. Do you understand that? So what is the way forward? The way forward is structural reform. More power to the DRDO. Make DRDO a competitive organization very much similar to American, European, Japanese, Israeli counterparts. Identification of self-reliance goals means what we need to achieve with respect to self-reliance. कहाँ जाना है? क्या target है? Like the draft defense policy, production and export promotion gives us such targets. R&D needs to be given precedence, but for that you need to have good IPR protection mechanisms and dispute settlement mechanisms. Integration of military maintenance infrastructure with the PSUs, DPSUs and private sector. It means so that when you have integrated military infrastructure, then you can use the interlinkages, the agglomeration effect kicks in, the multiplier effect kicks in, and overall the production improves. Software industries and technologies like artificial intelligence and cyber security should be used to develop and manufacture the chip indigenously. You know that modern weapons, they are electronic weapons which often use microchips. Most of the times you'll see that India has done good in software, it has not done good in hardware. So as far as the chip is concerned, it means the microchip, we need to produce that indigenously first. It will help us both in space as well as in defense. Efficient supply chain. Supply chain means लॉजिस्टिकल कनेक्शन होना चाहिए फ्रॉम एरियाज ऑफ डिमांड टू एरियाज ऑफ सप्लाई, गुड ट्रांसपोर्टेशन फैसिलिटीज, good value chain system so that you can do the upgradation as you move along the value chain. There is always value addition in that. Clear? So this is the way forward with respect to defense indigenization. Let's have a look at it. Self-reliance in defense is indispensable for attaining strategic independence and economic prudence. In the context of the above statement, discuss the need for a new defense policy for India. Obviously, क्या बनाएंगे इसमें? सबसे पहले first the meaning of defense indigenization, then the meaning of defense Indianization, then what are the advantages of defense indigenization, strategic, economic, psychological advantages, then what steps have been taken by the government like FDI, Mission Gyan Shakti and all of that. Then you have to highlight the draft defense policy, why it is needed, or the draft, or why we need it, and finally you need to conclude on the point that what are the challenges with respect to defense indigenization in India. Clear? So let us do one more topic. I think we have few time to cover this one also, but I'll do it very swiftly, so be with me on this. So it deals with elimination of single-use plastic from India. Clear? Plastic is a miraculous material. The growth of plastics have facilitated industrial growth greatly. Especially think of the food industry, the packaging industry. It very liberally uses plastic. Plastic is a miraculous material, but plastic is non-biodegradable. It is believed that plastic remains in the soil for hundreds of years, and the amount of plastic that we are producing, that can hurt our ecological balance in the long run. But of all the plastics that we are producing, the most troublesome is the single-use plastic. What does this single-use plastic means? Plastic which is used only once and then it is thrown, or before recycling, it is used only once. Such kind of plastic is creating a lot of problem for the ecosystem. So we need to eliminate the single use of plastics from the entire world, especially through India. In fact, our sustainable development goals will not be achieved unless we eliminate the use of plastics, especially what kind of plastic? Single-use plastic. What are single-use plastics? Let's have a look at its definition. According to United Nations Environment Program, single-use plastics, often referred to as disposable plastics, are commonly used for plastic packaging and include items intended to be used only once before they are thrown away or recycled. This include, among other items, grocery bags, food packaging, bottles, straws, containers, cups and cutlery. So often you will see that these are the items which are used just one and then thrown away, but plastic remains in the ecosystem for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. It is non-biodegradable. In 2018, the Prime Minister announced that India would eliminate single-use plastic by 2022. These are some facts I'm giving you. Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Defence have already banned single-used plastic. Clear? So the Prime Minister have announced it. Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Defence have already done it. Why single-use plastic is a problem? Now this is what UPSC would be more interested in. First, environmental factors. Obviously, it hurts ecosystems and wildlife. Say for example, it can hurt the flora, it can hurt the fauna, especially in ecosystems where you have vulnerable species, threatened species. If you just infuse plastic into that ecosystem, you do irreparable damage to the recovery of such species, because plastic remains in soil, and if suppose the animals ingest it, it can cause some sort of you can understand digestive problems in them, which can also adversely affect their health. Cause air pollution. If you burn the plastic, it causes air pollution. If you bury the plastic, it causes soil pollution. If you dump the plastic in water, it causes marine pollution. So you cannot get rid of the plastic. And if water bodies are flooded with plastics, what happens is they hurt phytoplankton growth, and phytoplankton are floating vegetations over the oceans. They are a great source of carbon sink. So generation of plastic has a direct connection with global warming also. Coral reefs, after all, coral reefs, they support nearly 1/4 of the all biodiversity that is present over the surface of the earth, and plastics hurts more the coral reefs. The coral reefs, you know that there are different kinds of reefs like fringing reefs, the barrier reef and the atolls. They are at the margins of the land in whatever capacity they are, and you know, over the land, if plastic is generated, ultimately rainwash can take it to the coral reefs and can create a blanket over the coral polyps and hurt their ability to absorb sunlight. You remember the zooxanthellae alga, which forms a symbiotic mutualistic partnership with the coral polyps, get hurt, and if that alga dies, then the coral reefs also perish. Health hazards. See, plastics contain toxic chemicals such as styrene and benzene. Both are considered carcinogenic. Carcinogenic means cancer हो सकता है इससे. And plastic contains this. What happens is, देखो रहते रहते plastic degrade तो नहीं होता है, but वो disintegrate ज़रूर होता है, और disintegrate होकर वो हवा के साथ उड़ने भी लगता है. So it comes in lower atmosphere, and as you inhale, you can inhale microplastics. Microplastic they can accumulate in your heart, they can accumulate in your lungs, and they can cause great health damages. Social factors. In many rural areas, you would see that in the poor families, the women would especially use plastic. They will burn plastic so as a matter or as a source of heat or for fuel for cooking, and it has devastating health impacts over them. Economic factors. Growth of plastic hurts two industries specifically, the tourism industry and the fishing industry, because marine fishes get affected due to microplastics and plastics in general, and tourism industry. यही हुआ है उत्तराखंड में, सब जा जाकर इतना प्लास्टिक फेंक कर आए हैं that you see that the tourism sector of Uttarakhand has registered lower growth for the first time in 30 years. So tourism, it hurts tourism, it's a big challenge. Urban waste management problems. Plastic often choke the drains, which causes urban floods. Also, you see that segregation of plastic from the liquid waste often creates problem, because this is what happened, that people put the waste in the plastic and then they throw it away, and the waste can also be liquid waste. So you can understand it creates a kind of headache for the municipalities. Hurts livestock health. Say for example the buffalo or the cow, if it ingests, or the goat or the dog or the rat or the cat, if they ingest plastic, then you can understand that it not only hurts them. And think of livestock, for example cattle. If cattle, they ingest plastic, it can hurt their health. It is also inhuman, right? You might have seen many situations where the street cow, she is eating the plastic because of dearth of food and thrown material. Suppose somebody has thrown some vegetables tied in a plastic and throw it somewhere because of lack of dumping grounds, or because of just apathy towards the environment, and the cow, you see, it devours over it with the hope that it is eating something, but you know, after all, it does not have the capability to open the plastic and eat the vegetables. So it is inhuman. Hurts agricultural production because it creates soil pollution, it creates water pollution, and all these things can hurt the overall agricultural production. So these are the problems with respect to the single-use plastics. What efforts have been taken to eliminate single-use plastic? The government of India has held off imposing a blanket ban. Means first, government of India thought that they would put a blanket ban on the use of single-use plastic, but they have not done it, because you know plastic has some trade advantages also, especially for say the packaging food industry, जो आपके जो स्विगी है, जोमेटो है और ये सारे इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, you know, they use plastic at a very high rate, so a lot of people are employed in it. So government did not think of putting, first it thought of putting a blanket ban, and if you put a blanket ban without giving alternatives, obviously there would be underground usage of the material. Clear? So what government did is, instead of a direct blanket ban, government tried to curb the use of plastic bags, cups, plates, small bottles, straws and certain types of sachets. The sachets that were available, now you see that they are growing, they are coming down in number, and small bottles are appearing in their place, or say with some sort of other biodegradable material bag. Apart from this, Government of India has asked states to enforce existing rules against storing, manufacturing and using some single-use plastic products such as polythene bags and styrofoam, etc. Now, polythene perhaps is the king of all kinds of plastics, and you'll see that polythene is used very widely all over urban India, also in rural India. So you see that that is something that has been targeted. Let us have a look at some of the steps that are taken globally. About 112 countries, states and cities around the world have already imposed bans on various single-use plastic. केन्या ने तो प्लास्टिक बैग लॉ निकाला है कि अगर आप पकड़े गए प्लास्टिक यूज करते हुए तो फाइन आप पे पड़ सकता है $38,000 तक का. So you can understand that. Basel Convention, which is on controlling transboundary movement of hazardous material, and Stockholm Convention, which is on persistent organic pollutants or POP, they both are against the use of single-use plastic. Clear? What are the alternatives to plastics? Let's have a look at this. First is bioplastic. Bioplastic is made from alga, waste agriculture and food residues, using bacteria or mushrooms as microconverter. Yes, microorganisms are used, the waste, bio-waste is used, and it is converted into plastic. Some bioplastics like the polyhydroxy alkanonates are soil and marine safe. It means they do not pollute the soil, they do not pollute the oceanic environment. That is, they safely degrade in the environment within weeks or months, leaving no harmful effects. Whereas plastic remains for hundreds of years. It can remain for thousands of years. Do you understand that? Plastics can also hurt the insect diversity. Especially think of cockroach. Now, कॉकरोच को भगवान ने लगभग परफेक्ट बनाया है. Why am I saying so? Because the cockroach can run, it can run very fast. The cockroach can go into water. The cockroach can fly. The cockroach can do anything. In fact, do you know, if there is a nuclear global war, the only thing that would be surviving would be cockroach. कॉकरोच फिर भी बच जाएंगे. मतलब वो तो नियर परफेक्ट क्रिएशन हो गया एकदम से, बट उल्टा हो जाए तो फिर सीधा नहीं हो सकता. So you can understand that God has created a kind of balance. But jokes apart, one thing is plastics can hurt cockroaches. Clear? So you can understand how terrible are plastics. Water dispensers and water ATMs. इसका मतलब ये है, जैसे आप ATM से पैसे निकालते हो, वैसे वाटर डिस्पेंसर्स अगर आप चले जाओगे वेस्ट में, गो टू UK, यू गो टू फ्रांस, यू गो टू US, यू विल फाइंड वाटर डिस्पेंसर्स वेयर यू पुट योर बॉटल एंड यू कैन गेट फ्रेश वाटर. ये वो डिस्पेंसर्स की बात नहीं हो रही है जो रेलवे स्टेशन पे लगा हुआ है. दे आर ATM वाटर डिस्पेंसर्स विच आर at every place, and definitely then people will not buy plastic bottles, say for example of water. Single-use plastics cannot be avoided. A plethora of technologies can help cover and sort the waste. Examples are smart bins which segregate the waste, sorting machines which sort the waste on the basis of their texture, and smart packaging technologies. So different technologies can be employed to eliminate the use of single-use plastic. Eco-friendly alternatives like bamboo sticks, bamboo straws, ऐसे होते हैं, with the help of which you can use them as an alternative for plastic straws, for example. Clear? So these are the alternatives to plastic. The way forward, how can we eliminate single-use plastic? First, Generate awareness among people about the problems that are associated with single-use plastic, how they can hurt the ecosystem, how they can hurt livestock, how they can hurt agriculture, how they can hurt human health. ये awareness जगाइए. Second, promote alternatives to plastic like bioplastic, use technologies, use bamboo, etc. All those kind of things. Efficient plastic waste collection, segregation and disposal. This is for the municipal agencies. Like this is for the urban local bodies especially and the PRIs. Strong laws and policies. You need strong laws. जैसे केनिया ने बनाया उतना strong भी नहीं कि $38,000 आप fine लगा रहे हो for plastic use. But strong laws, efficient laws, they must be efficiently implemented, and adoption of international best practices. Like say for example, if you go to Sweden, if you go to Denmark, you will find that there are some good practices that have been adopted. Like people in, say for example, Oslo will never walk out of their home without a bag, and the bag would be a biodegradable bag. They use paper bags. Now in India also that thing is on the rise, the use of paper bags. Encouraging civil society participation. Without this participation of people, you cannot eliminate single-use plastic. From environment mitras, very much on the line of Swachhata Mitras. These environment mitras will create awareness and will also work with the NGOs and the civil society, ensuring that single-use plastic is totally eliminated from the ecosystem. Support the plastic industries for making the transition. Obviously, you cannot ask the plastic industry shun your work immediately and move to another industry. They need some time to do the migration. So for that transition, you need to support the plastic industry. Ask them to bring down their production on one hand and provide them alternatives on the other hand, or provide them fiscal support so that they can think of some other business. But the guiding principle should be the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. ये 3 चीजें आपको करनी है. You need to reduce the use of single use plastic, और अगर हो रहा है तो reuse करो उसे, single use पे मत रखो. And recycle. Recycle means that you again reuse it after some chemical transformations. Clear? Let's have a look at the question. Elimination of single-use plastic is a sine qua non for arresting environmental degradation and delivering social justice elucidate. What you need to do in this is, first you need to define what is single-use plastic, what are the disadvantages of single-use plastic, what are the advantages of eliminating single-use plastic, and what steps have been taken by the government to eliminate single-use plastic, and what more needs to be done. It means the way forward. So on that note, I will close this session from my side and I'll take care of your questions next. Please put the light on. Okay, so most of the messages are again, they are thanking people. Okay. So most of the messages are thanking me. So there are not any questions as such. I'm not finding them.
Joe Biden.
Okay. So,
to make a video on Jordan. And
okay, so there is some request with respect to some video on the US elections. Yes, definitely I'll be doing that in the upcoming classes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. On that note, I'll close it.